Hey, this is a big crowd, isn't it?
Certainly
I'll
is.
say.
We
Hello.
don't normally have this many people for a gaming podcast, but Party James, you brought this one up, and I had to hop on it.
Yeah, so just for context, on my Twitter account, and to be honest, I've seen this game discussed before, but like on my Twitter account, there was like this ongoing conversation about well, the joke was that if there are fan games, this implies the existence of hater games, reading the tweet out verbatim. And then someone quote retweeted that with two different games. One is called like uh, Rosker's Adventures or something, and the other is called Virtus. The former being like a classic Sonic style game, and the latter being a classic Zelda type of game. And the reason that these games were brought up is because the first one talked about, like, on the very Steam page you can pre-order the game at. It talks about, do you miss the old game? Do you feel like Sonic has died and Mania was not good enough for you? Well, you can play our game instead. And then the Zelda one is one from the dev who, funny enough, was like responding to this, and I'll get to some of their comments. But basically, her or their original tweet was Zelda's. Do you miss when Zelda's distinct dungeons were not copy paste open world garbage? Me too. Check out our game. And there was a whole discussion about like, is this like an okay way to advertise? And I wanted to bring it up as a point of discussion because there was a lot of actually interesting points brought up. So the tweet is linked in mod stuff for the people here if you want to refer to it. But yeah, let me just get your thoughts, I guess, before I go into mine.
I
Well, okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
Uh, uh, one thing, I that could be a possibility that maybe this is just like a marketing stunt because this was, let's be honest, this kind of marketing strategy was very prevalent during like the 1990s. You know, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. So, like, or like when there was this ad of fucking Crash Bandicoot pulling up to Nintendo headquarters,
That's entirely
Yeah,
stuff like
and
that.
yeah, and that is a valid point because one line I didn't read about the Sonic game is they had like a line that says Rosker does what Sonic can't, referring to Sega. What was it? The Sega Nintendo line. Genesis does
Genesis
what
does
Nintendo
what
don't.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is that, especially like with Sonic games, and that's going to be a big part of when I go into my spiel. Is that this was a huge part of marketing back in the day, and these games harken back to that time. So the marketing, it has some level of historical validity. But what I will also toss in, and I'll bring this up more later, is that I feel like that kind of marketing has honestly brought a lot of the toxicity that current exists, like between like in the Sonic fan base, because like the way we are extremely defensive and argumentative, and I think it in part stems from the business decisions Sega makes, including its marketing tactics back in the 90s. As far as I don't know exactly how aggressive Nintendo was with the marketing, but
They weren't
probably something similar.
as they weren't as aggressive because it's fucking Nintendo, but they did play into it a lot, and they did a lot of weird marketing, like the almost to the level of like the 2000, the like mid 2000s level of fucking Sony, right? And you remember the weird like baby shit that they did with the PS3? They did some weird stuff like that with the Game Boy because I bought a lot of like an actual lot of like old Nintendo Power stuff a couple months ago, and that was like from the 90s and 2000s, and I'm looking at some of these ads, I'm like, what the fuck was going on in the brains of the marketing team here, because it's just very weird. um but I will say, like, we also have this like guerrilla marketing with brands now on Twitter, especially with, like Opera GX. It started with Wendy's. I don't know how many of you remember Sassy Wendy's Twitter. uh,
Oh yeah, I mean they were probably one of the originals, along with like the Sonic Social Team and like what was it, Skittles maybe?
I think it was
Yeah,
Skittles,
they were
yeah.
like the big.
But like it kind of falls into that line. You know, all these trends go in a circle basically. We from fashion to marketing to like even like journalism, we go all the way back around. So it's not like this is unheard of. It's just you're right, it does bring out that toxic nature, and there is nothing more toxic than the gaming community, really, other than maybe the Star Wars community. And that's a
That's fair, actually.
very bad way to play into this if you want to sell your game and have it do well without doing damage to it, unfortunately. And I would love to see all these little indie darlings succeed, but when you're playing into that nature of that, you're just going to get constantly shit on by the community you're targeting.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of the person who was doing like the Zelda tweet. I'm looking at like some of their tweets, and they seem to be doubling down now on it. And because the tweet that they made yesterday, people are, and I quote, people are still making posts about for Veritas, I cannot pronounce the name of the game, being a hate game. Dude, if I hated Zelda, why would it have inspired me? Why would I want to take something I hate and put my own spin on it? This is getting so old. And I'm just there thinking, like, well, you've kind of criticized Nintendo for what they've been doing with Zelda and being like, hey, come and play my game if you liked it back then.
I mean, that doesn't really make it a hate game. It's just they don't like the current direction of Zelda, and I don't either, realistically. But that isn't going to inspire me to come play this fan game either.
Yeah, and it's not. And if they don't like the current direction that Zelda has gone, that is fine. But using that as a way to plug your game, it'll be like if someone made like a parody, since you brought up Star Wars, it would be like if someone made a parody of Star Wars and be like, hey, remember when Star Wars used to be actually good? Yeah? Well, come and support my film project that I'm making.
Yeah, it would be exactly that. And yeah, I think I'm in full agreement with you, Luke, because like the creators are of course people and they're allowed to have opinions. And I'm sure that like this game was very much like inspired in part by a love of a previous game and a little bit of distaste towards the current direction, which is a growing sentiment I've noticed in the Zelda community. And honestly, like with the Nintendo community in general, I've noticed a lot more pushback from them, which is good to see because I feel like Nintendo fan base doesn't fight back as much as it should. But that's a whole discussion topic.
Yeah, if they did, but I feel like a lot of people have now started to like push back a little bit because that's why we're not Pokemon, especially, is taking like a gap year for the first time in a really long time.
Yeah, agreed. And that's like a sign that pushing back and saying stuff is good because they do listen if you vote with your wallet and are vocal about these kinds of things. And the Pokemon community, I'm glad to see, is getting some attention there. But Pokemon is a whole discussion topic and bring up a different time. Because what I want to say with the person who tweeted that is because I have been seeing them kind of like defend their stance, and like one of the tweets I saw them make is that hey, more people have been talking about this game through this tweet than any of other marketing strategies, because the reality is this wasn't a marketing strategy, it's just a dev talking about their game. But so that is like one point against what Tyler was mentioning, at least for this particular game. The other game is spot on. But I say that if you are a dev of a game and the way you're trying to attract attention is by saying it's like our game is giving you what the developers won't and it's much better for it, that kind of makes me wonder like how really good your game is, because I feel like the best indie games that are inspired by old stuff, they aren't just like blatant like let's copy the template and just do that verbatim, but with original OCs. Yeah. They find like their own interesting ways to kind of twist the formula. Like people didn't like Undertale just because it's like Earthbound inspired, but because it had its own like story and mechanics that all tie together thematically. And if this is just like, well, we're just doing old school Zelda because Nintendo's not doing old school Zelda, then it's like, well, okay, but that's nothing that new or revolutionary. It has
Yeah.
its niche fan base, but it's not gonna
It's not
be
going to
something that most
sell.
people are gonna play.
Not going to sell
And I'm
massively. Look to Tunic, for example. That's a recent indie darling that it was inspired by classic Zelda. And it did wonderfully. I don't know how successful it was overall because it was also on Game Pass, sales wise
Yeah, me
anyway.
neither.
But it was one of the most talked about games for the year it came out because it was realistically very much that classic Zelda inspired, and people were missing that. And if I remember right, it was up for like indie game of the year and shit too. So like you don't have to do this guerrilla marketing tactic that we keep seeing time and time again from these indie games. You can just very much drop your game, say, "Hey, you missed the old Zelda. Here you go. Here's something to like scratch that itch." And you're not shitting on the current trends. You're not doing any of that. You're just kind of like, if you want to fulfill that little bit of nostalgia, here's a game like that. Look to Oceanhorn back on the iPhone. Even it was one of the like most talked about mobile games for a while, and just because it was classic, almost like Wind Waker Zelda inspired, and that was one of the most talked about Zelda games.
yeah.
And
I
those
just
kind of
want to.
did that. That's kind of a great way to go about it instead of this bullshit.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go off on what you were saying there. If you look at, say, something like, I can't believe I'm bringing this up here, but Doki Doki Literature Club, where it's like, that technically is an indie game. It started off as an indie game, and it was like a spin on the visual light novel, but also had like elements of Undertale and like Metal Gear Solid and those types of games as well. And they didn't need to do something like this. Like, hey, remember how people used to like visual novels in Japan? Well, here's a really dark one. The fact that they didn't spoil it right out of the gate of what it actually was, I think that helped it grow in popularity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I agree, but wait, what were in Doki Literature Club? What were the elements from like Metal Gear?
It's because at the end of the game, it's revealed that the main villain, like the Monica character, actually knows who you are. It's like she knows you're in a game.
Like, yeah, I got it. Because Metal Gear does have some fourth wall breaks. I remember now.
And I'm looking at this game right now, this indie game, like this image right now. It's very clear they just took Final Fantasy and Zelda and just smacked them together.
I mean,
I was gonna say, like with Tunic example that Vex brought up, it had like both its unique style and puzzle solving elements that told its own story. Oceanhorn I played a little bit of. I didn't really get into it as much because it felt a little bit more cookie cutter in terms of what it was doing. Yeah, so I think that's why, like, comparatively, Tunic I think is more well remembered than Oceanhorn for that very reason.
I don't know how Oceanhorn got a sequel, but there's apparently a sequel on the phone, and I'm like,
oh, I know.
I'm like, do I really want to go back and play the full version for full first game and then try the sequel, or just kind of be like, I experienced what I experienced and that's fine? Because I actually it was a paid app too. That's what was so fucking weird to me. And then I think that the sequel's on like Google Game the Google Game like the fucking Apple Arcade version of Google Play. I saw it on there, and it was like, cool. I don't really care, even though I like Wind Waker. I want Wind Waker to come to the Switch or the Switch 2, but like, there's only so many ways you can innovate on that type of gameplay, I feel like. But like Tunic, you're right. Like, it had the unique puzzle solving. It had like this mini roguelite aspect to it. It had all this cool stuff going for it, and it wasn't just this cookie cutter. Like, I slapped my OC in a fucking RPG Maker game, and then I was done with it.
Yeah,
it's kind of what.
And I normally don't want to like insult indie game devs like this because it's not easy making a game. But
no.
To be fair, they started it.
Yeah, it's you can't really say that Polyjons when they're the ones who are actually asking for this, and then when people criticize them for it, they're like, "Oh no, no, it wasn't like that. It wasn't meant to be like that." It's like, come on, you obviously knew what you were doing here.
Yep. And the fact is, it does work. So, like, there is that part of me that's like, well, I mean, if this is how you sell copies and need to, get more funding for your stuff, then do what you got to do. But I feel like you're only fostering like a bad following from then on.
Exactly.
You're basically,
Comparatively, I think.
I'm just gonna say, you're basically probably at this point setting your game up to be like, I have no confidence in this game right now. So how can I get people talking about it? By criticizing another game franchise.
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
what I wanted to bring up was Vex brought up Zelda examples. I figured I should do the same for Sonic because that was like a big thing for me in bringing up this topic. Because there are plenty of Sonic fan games because the fan base has always had their own idea of what they want for a Sonic game, which leads to all our endless discussions. And so fan games have come about for that reason. And like one of the best ones, in my opinion, is Freedom Planet. And that game, like, originally started as just a Sonic fan game, which then they had like original assets and voice acting, put on Kickstarter, got funded, went successfully, got a sequel, also great. And I will recommend that because it's like one of my favorite indie games, like probably my second or third favorite indie game. And I think that that game never insulted like the series. And you know what they got for it? They got the official Sonic account like a long while back when the game came out to promote their game. Like, Sonic's always been very pro like fan works, and hopefully it stays that way. And so it's that one. I think, especially to me, it feels weird to be vindictive when the official brand is very supportive of fan works, of mods. I mean, the devs behind Sonic Frontiers, they literally said, we were looking at the mods when we were coming up with the DLC, and it really inspired us to make stuff. And it's like, that's really cool. Why would fan games from that series want to be like antagonizing those kinds of devs and this kind of social media team? You're just hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And like, you're right, like Sonic has always been like this really pro fan work. The YouTube bot not so much, but they even go in and I've seen them like, hey, no, you're not going to strike this kind of content. When like even the music is utilized, right? Because there was an era of like people using the Sonic OST and shit for like fan animation and stuff, and they're like, no, you're not going to strike this content. And there are very few developers that are actually that pro fan. Like Undertale is one of them that like they even created their own process to remove like copyright strikes. If you use like Megalovania and all this shit. So it's really nice seeing a lot of these like pro fan studios and or like games in general, and I really don't understand like when you have that behind you why this would kind of be the thing though, the avenue they would go with, against Sonic, right? You can hate a lot of like what Sonic did in like the 2010 era, but like now it has had a full-on renaissance, and Sega has been doing really good with everything, the comics to the games to everything. So it's just fucking weird to me that we've gotten this again. Like, it's fucking crazy. But again, like we go in circles with all of this, and it's unfortunate that that's how the industry functions, because like when we go in circles, we kind of go back to the bad. So I'll be curious like if we have a fumble from the officials now that we kind of gone to like full good, will we go back to like Sonic Unleashed levels of bad for Sonic?
It will be either way. Someone will find a way to complain about absolutely anything.
I
Like-
mean, you're not wrong.
they'll probably complain
They
like,
put a
"Oh,
hard
so-"
mode in my kids' game.
They may no, it won't be that. It won't be that, Vex. It'll be something really, really, really petty. Like something like they made Sonic spike. They made Sonic have like 5 spikes as a. How many spikes does Sonic have on it?
Do you think anybody sits there and fucking? I'm sure there is one of those
No,
assholes.
no,
that
no,
sits there-
no, no, no. Vex. This is a whole. Sonic spikes is in fact a whole big topic. How the spikes are aligned, their positions, their numbers, their length. I promise you, I've had these discussions on a regular basis.
Yeah. I
want
wasn't
to
talking about
die.
the spikes. I was talking about like the quills on Sonic. You know, like the quills on his.
Well,
back.
yeah, I know you meant quills, but yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
That
they'll
is
be-
a whole a discussion, and the answer I think is 5. By the way, like
Yeah,
4 on
yeah,
like each
yeah.
corner.
They,
and one
they,
center.
they took out one of Sonic's quills. This is the worst thing ever.
No, there are mods that just do that just because the people do get upset about it. You're not even making an exaggeration. That's a thing.
Yeah,
The
like
silhouette of the quills is a thing. Oh my god.
for being
Is your
as
fan
non-
base ever happy?
Well,
don't know.
Vex, you've got to realize this is the same type of fan base who will complain about something like, say, when a manga gets adapted into an anime and they complain like, oh, the shading and the lighting's off. Oh, this is awful. Like the hairs on this
We have
character that all
immaculate
out of
conception
place.
in Star Wars now. What the fuck was Anakin, people?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you really can't be mad at that by now.
Like
They're getting
the
mad
po-
at midichlorians at the same.
the point
Don't
point
get me
is
started on metachlorians.
we won't get you started. The point is that the you could have basically like the greatest game ever created, and yet someone would still find a way to complain about it.
I mean, I'm going to be the controversial one. I actually had a lot of fun with Sonic Unleashed, and people hated that game.
Yeah, you know what's funny is Sonic
I'm-
Unleashed is getting more love nowadays as like one of the best of the Boost games, and also one of the last like really challenging games. So
Yeah.
it really is a cycle as people age. Like the 2010 games, you just wait a couple years. Like the people who grew up with that, I mean, they're already like approaching adulthood. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
Shadow's still terrible. I
Yeah.
will not
Sorry, what?
change that. I was
Shadow the
saying-
Hedgehog
I'm saying,
is still
yeah.
terrible according to Songetsu.
like the
but as
character,
well,
the game, I'm very
the I
The
think
game.
the game.
I
Yeah.
love the character.
okay.
love the little
The
F4.
game. I mean, I feel like the big discussion now is was it cool to have Sonic have a gun or not, or Shadow have a gun?
I
Sorry.
mean, yes. But
But
Yeah, it was. Okay, we're in agreement then. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead, Luke.
there was one other thing I wanted to say as well is that in regards to this tweet as well, is that there's going to be people out there like as well, like the opposite of that, opposite of what I was just saying. Like there's regardless of what anything is, there's always going to be a fan for it. There will always be like one fan for it, and tweets like this where they're basically like, imagine if someone read this tweet from this dev, and they're like, but I like the things that you're criticizing about. No, I'm not going to play your thing. You've basically lost a customer there.
Yeah, and that is the other really big point I wanted to bring up. So thank you for bringing it up, because a lot of people were in this tweet discussion mentioning it's like this is the kind of thing that turns me off the game, and of course it would, because like for people who actually have respect for the devs behind these games or the games that they enjoy, then they're going to be like, well, this is a huge turnoff. And it's like a political smear campaign. Like you can say that it's politics and that's something people do and they do. But if your biggest positive point is the other candidate sucks, which is extremely relevant in today's day and age.
Oh, absolutely, especially over here at the moment.
And here.
Us too. Yeah. I mean, I was watching okay, this is tangentially related. I was watching a John Oliver special on it, and as far as I understand, in the UK, it's more like, well, we know which party's going to win, but they're just going to win by default.
Yeah, they're just gonna. I said this to Red when he was in Discord the other day. It's kind of like at this point, with the general election coming up on Thursday, it's like pick your poison. It's like, would you rather be pissed on or shat on?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what's going on here for us too. There's like nowhere safe.
Neither.
But what tying back to the games is like if that's the biggest point forward, it kind of makes it seem like the game doesn't have anything that really makes it stand out on its own, and that's very telling if you're not going to
Yeah.
market anything like that.
Yeah, if you're not going to market like what makes your game, I feel like that's another problem with devs like this, is that they don't market like what your game brings to the table. It's just like, hey, you've got nostalgia for this thing. Well, we have it in spades here. It's like, okay, anything else? No.
Yep, and that is it. I do hate when that happens, but I think I had like two more like points I wanted to bring up with this. One was in some cases, it's not the devs that will cause the issues. It will be the fans. Look, when Sonic Frontiers came out, it was like insanely popular, not just in the fan base, but outside of it. But of course, there were fans who, it's like, this isn't my thing. And, that's fine. Not everyone's going to like every game. And Sonic always takes a new direction with everything. So it's very different every time. But with Frontiers, people were a little bit more, I think, upset for those who didn't like it because it's going to be like effectively the formula for the next like decade or so. The devs said as much. So when those fans were speaking out, they used the biggest fan game, as far as I'm aware, Sonic fan game, Spark the Electric Jester, like the third one, as an example of what 3D Sonic quote unquote should be. And I remember feeling very bad for the Spark dev because like they've never said anything bad about the franchise. They have a love for not just the 2D games, but also the 3D games from their latest title. And you can just tell, like, this is someone who didn't make a game out of spite, but really out of, like, a desire to make something fun with a basis in a franchise he enjoys. But the fans of his game were weaponizing it effectively to say this is what the original franchise should be. And I found that really, like, the stupidest take I've ever heard, because it's like, we already have that game, though. Why does Sonic need to be what someone else is already doing? Like, if anything, that's just counterproductive. It makes that indie games less special if they just did that, but with like a higher budget. So that was point number one. And then the last point is that is Power World, because that came to mind when we were talking about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Power World got like crazy huge for being effectively Pokemon with guns, but the devs themselves, as far as I know, never like badmouthed Pokemon, and it was everyone else that was really using the phrase Pokemon with guns. It wasn't even like their thing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
More of like I would say like news outlets just doing the whole thing is a X game killer. They do that a lot when there's
Oh,
like a
absolutely.
game in a certain genre that gets like any sort of buzz. It's like it's the X game killer, everybody.
yeah. Like, there's always a new Genshin killer every time.
Yeah,
And like Genshin's
but-
just making hand over fist money, making the worst decisions imaginable.
Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, like Pokemon and like Nintendo and the creators of Power World there seem cool now. As far as I'm aware, there's like not been any like major like drama going on between them.
There's never been
At least that we
actual
know
major
of.
drama with them though.
No, but I
Like,
think didn't Nintendo try to
No,
sue?
that was the whole thing about the mod. That's
right.
That's what they were gonna sue about, like the
Mhm.
mod. You know, the people who made the said mod.
Oh,
you know,
right.
Yeah,
were talking
and
about
I
that. They were
mean,
never-
Monster Capture series, like Nintendo's like the most litigious group ever. But I think Pal World will be fine because they're making like expanded content from like whatever the last presentation was. So I think
and
it just won't be a game we'll ever see on a Nintendo system.
Yeah,
No, it's just
like-
like that. Like that was like a. It's from a Japanese company, so if they had any issue with it at any point, like they could have just sued them like before the game was ever released.
Oh, yeah, probably. But as well, there's something else I wanted to say, like, because I'm on the Power World wiki right now, where where it says the CEO of the company that made Palworld, the company has received death threats from users on X. Like, stop doing that. Just stop doing that.
I mean, it's Twitter. It's fucking Twitter. If there's ever a more toxic site, I do not know it. And I have been on every fucking social media basically at this point, and I have never dealt with more death threats in my life than being on fucking Twitter. It is pathetic. You voice an opinion about a band and you have an inbox full of death threats. It is pathetic. That's why I lock and unlock my Twitter all the time when I even bother using social media. But like it's stupid. Like, I don't understand the whole point of like death threats. I say, having tweeted like a guillotine gif at Elon Musk before.
But that's the thing. Like, Twitter has always been consistently that bad.
Yes. And people think it was just when Elon took over. No, it has always been that bad. I had death threats when we were doing Promised Neverland reviews, and that was pre-Elon. But like, I understand the logic behind people being upset at Palworld, because if you look at the original presentation of it versus what we actually got, they're two vastly different games, right? The other one was very much more Pokemon oriented, and then this one was like more survival crafting. And, you know, I had fun with it for what it was, but there was only so much content you could play, right? It's not as infinitely replayable as, say, the original Pokemon games are. Like, you can go back and you can boot up fucking Heart Gold and still have a fucking wonderful time with it. But you go back to Palworld and you're like, huh, what do we do now? Like, obviously they have new content coming out and I'll play that. But it was very much like a limited game. And it's the same thing with Helldivers.
But I think that's just how game design is now compared to back then.
Yep.
Because nowadays it's like updates, like
Live
you and I
service.
both play Honkai, for example, and that's just like a little bits of story every so often.
You get
That's how
like
that game
2-3
works.
story quests every like quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
As opposed to back then when it's like, we have to release this game all at once. So we make the game extremely replayable or extremely difficult or both in order to extend the value of the game.
Do you want to fight Emerald Weapon? Bash your head against the wall for 6 hours. But like there's that's very much it. Like it's the difference between like the live service era and then the, you know, classic era of gaming. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to like so live service heavy. But I understand the logic behind it, instead of like, here's a broken game and it is broken forever. You know? Like, if you look at like
also,
for example, like classic DMC3 was so hard that they had to re-release it as like the special edition. Because nobody could actually really beat the original version of it. And the original version of it is one of the most sought after PS2 games now.
Luke, I think you were trying to say something?
Yeah, I was kind of going along the same lines of like what Vex was saying, where it's like, and what you were saying, where it's like, nowadays it's all just about like it's all about the expansion pass. And I feel like they need to like, okay, not every game needs an expansion pass. Just make it either replayable or incredibly difficult or both. Or hey, here's another option: make the story. And I know story's like not one of the big things when it comes to games, but make the story like so captivating that you want to come back and have that experience again, but also have it be like, okay, like perfect example for me would be like something like South Park: The Stick of Truth, which has an amazing like South Park story, but at the same time you want to go back and like play as all the different classes in the game.
One thing I do want to bring up, is that I noticed that like this is a particular case, because with the Rosker one, I noticed they were going after Sega. and Sega, as Party Jam said, is also very pro pro fan games. They promoted Freedom Planet. I just had a thought, and feel free to call me out if you think I'm spitting crap here, but I feel like if the devs were like somebody more with a less positive opinion, like fucking Actibliz or fudge. Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah, like EA, Actibliz,
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft. I feel like this might be a different conversation because like,
Oh, I think I know what you are talking about, but I'll let you finish your thought first.
yeah, there is also a case of like of this is punching up and not like punching down. Because let's be real, like not like because like in the case of like those companies, like they're like multi-million-dollar corporations, like, and not to mention like they don't have the best reputation. I feel like this might be a different conversation if it was one of those companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to an extent you are correct because originally I was thinking, when I was thinking of Palworld, I was thinking about other Pokemon fan games because one tweet I did see in this conversation mentioned that a lot of monster capture games like Palworld or Digimon, but also a bunch of smaller ones, if I mentioned here, you guys probably wouldn't know, like Nexamon. Like a lot of those games do in their marketing sometimes poke fun at Pokemon, and it doesn't get as much pushback from the fandom because like at Pokemon, up until very recently, like Luke was brought up earlier in our discussion, up until recently, Pokemon just kind of has always just been doing its whatever it wants without even having to worry. They can release a broken game and it just sells like multi-million copies and becomes like the best new selling it hit. So I think that fandom like dearly didn't care about like their getting poking fun at Pokemon and like releasing games almost as if to say it's like, okay, this is the kind of thing like Pokemon wouldn't do. But also because like it's Nintendo and they've removed Pokemon fan games with their legislative hand. So I think in that sense, you're right. If it was a company that's less liked, it would be a slightly different conversation. But I think even in this case, it's still like punching up, which is why I can't be too mad at these devs because it's not like they're bullying like some small players. They are the small players, and the big companies are the big guys. But I think it's just because I have a little bit more respect for the Sonic devs and all the work they put in, that when people like call them out for like being bad at the job, I'm like, okay, well, I can't say try making a game yourself because that's what you're doing, but I also don't think you're the kind of game I want to play. And like with Zelda, I almost have to be a little bit more sympathetic towards that dev who tweeted it, just because like Aonuma has quite literally come out and said it's like, I don't know if people would even want to play old school Zelda after the stuff we made. And I'm like, yeah, they do. That's what they've been saying. What do you mean? So there's a little bit more concern there, but at the same time, I think if it was something like Ubisoft, like people were poking fun of Ubisoft and try to make one of their games, people would be like, yeah, go ahead, make an Assassin's Creed. Like, what has Ubisoft been doing with the IP? I don't know. I just picked something random. I don't know if
I think
Assassin's
in
Creed's been
that
good or
sense,
not.
it has more to do with like Nintendo's like overall like thought process
Oh.
when it comes to like games and their products. They always think ahead towards like the newest thing. They never like, even if like the demand is there, they're always like thinking more of like we must like make new product. Why would you want old product? We're making new product. You don't want old product. But they also like double dip in, it's like, oh, they're for Nintendo, we have like these products that have value. So even if we're like re-releasing something, yeah, pay full price, pay 60.
Yeah, that's actually another topic we could talk about if we're making this a general podcast. But before we veer in, did anyone have anything to say on this one?
Just don't get me started on Assassin's Creed. Just don't get me started on Assassin's Creed. I'm the
Okay, I
singular
wasn't-
person here that plays that franchise still, and even I'm bashing my goddamn head against the wall. Like, why do you keep doing this? But yeah, no. Also, it runs like ass on the iPhone, but that also could be, network connection issues. But it's pretty, but it's just like, do you want to play a game in 4K at 12 frames per second? Great job, Apple. But no, like, let's just veer into this before I go up on like an hour-long tangent about Assassin's Creed in the direction of that franchise.
Okay, that's fair. Because I don't know if any of us can like really speak more on that.
No,
But I
because
did want to.
I was just going to say, because I've never played any of the Assassin's Creed
It's a
games,
great
so I can't
franchise if you don't go in expecting it to stay historically accurate while also preaching historical accuracy.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
talking about Yasuke being the protagonist. I am talking about the fact that there are fucking unicorns and demigods and fucking the third civilization that is basically the gods of the universe, all while wrapped around a political intrigue plot. And it's very, very bizarre. And I love it and I hate it. And Ubisoft needs to get their head out of their ass.
Okay, but Fex, does it say the word besties in it? Because if they do, then that's damn localization of a game.
No. Instead of that, they have what is a stout being marketed as a pale ale.
Yeah, I only said that because someone's just like done that, like, oh, stop using the word besties in translations for stuff, and I'm just there
get
thinking,
the stick out of your ass.
yeah, it's like, come on, besties means like, how is that localization?
I mean, it is, but it's like I think a decent example of localization because people do use that term.
Like my group chat with my best friends is literally that. I'm like, fuck it. Here's a name for
But
the
yeah,
group chat.
at the same time, I'm not going to be like that dev and be and target that person for saying that by saying like, "Hey, do you want to be besties?"
I have an idea who you're referring to, and they finally blocked me on Twitter.
So I'm pretty sure we have like a whole list of stuff to talk
We have
about
a couple
since
things still.
I don't know where you guys left off. So while we figure that out, I did want to talk about what Zengatsu brought up because that's kind of what I was thinking of when I was mentioning that Nintendo fans are starting to fight back a lot more. Because recently, since we're at the end of the Switch life cycle, as confirmed by Nintendo themselves, we kind of are seeing more and more remakes. But since they're Nintendo remakes, they're also like fully priced remakes.
Yeah.
And I read remakes in the biggest quotes because we had a discussion about the Thousand Year Door remake before, and if that was a remake, a remaster. And at this point, I'm convinced it's just a remake. But on the other hand, some of these are more remasters and should not be costing like full price.
Yeah, it's like with again, going back to Pokemon just quickly, it's like with Pokemon Let's Go. That is just basically a remaster of Gen 1, but with the Pokemon Go mechanics.
I think you can qualify that as a remake just because it's like very graphically different than, Gen 1 Pokemon.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's not a very good remake.
Yeah, but what I would call a remake is basically the remake of Resident Evil 4, where it's like it's a totally different game, totally different experience, but feels like, yeah, this is the same game, just with alterations to either improve on what the original was criticized for, and also give us new experiences in the game itself.
I guess the Let's Go mechanics were the new experience, but
Okay,
at the same time,
go ahead.
I saw a video from Game Explain about this topic, and I was like happy to see them post it because they're a very pro Nintendo channel for the most part. So seeing a more critical video was nice. But one example that they brought up was like the Metroid Prime remake. And what surprised me with that one is because, I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I'm glad for Metroid fans that that game came out, and hopefully the Prime series in general is getting more popular. But I didn't know that the Prime remake was only $40. Because I'm like, hold on, what do you mean Nintendo just like had this high quality remake and had a reasonable price for it? That doesn't make any sense. And meanwhile, they released like Donkey Kong Country for like the third time for $60.
I think in that case they didn't really have that much faith in the Metroid franchise. Why? I have no clue.
Yeah, because
See, if
Metroid
it
is
was
one of the
like
most clamored
before
for.
Dread. Wait, did the Prime remake come before Dread?
Dread was first.
Okay, yeah, so then that makes less sense to me because Dread I've heard was like extremely successful even by Metroid standards. I even bought it, and I'm not even like a big Metroid like person.
Yeah, like it was a great game too. If you knew how to play it and didn't get stuck in the tutorial. But like, it's really funny. Like, because you're right. Like, you have these very odd pricings for a lot of their fucking remakes. Because you have like the Prime remake was like $30-$40, and then you have like Thousand Year Door being the $60 fucking price tag. And I'm just like, why the disparity here?
Yeah, at least for that one, you could say that it's reasonable because Thousand Year Door, like on resale, is like what much more expensive.
Let's not go
So
there.
they almost get a pass for that reason. But you're right, that's like a $60 game that's released on modern hardware, but still somehow 30 frames per second. And I'm normally not the kind of person who even makes a big deal about it, and I guess it's not for people who played the game. But action timing is a part of it, part of the mechanics. So it does affect the experience. And it's weird that the Switch can't handle that. But whatever. Nowadays, to be fair, even PlayStation and Microsoft's console can't handle all their games at 60. So,
Yeah.
Then there's
Um,
me over here, primarily PC gamer, like, what's frame rate?
Yeah,
I
and
just
then
think with that one, it's more of like on their end, like them not sure, like gaming, like programming games is hard, but at the same time, it's just like they just don't feel like it's worth the effort to put it like a lot of them at 60, and they could.
Well, I mean, you have a
Yeah.
540p and a barely 1080p capable console there. So it also
No, I'm
comes down
not
to that.
talking about the Switch.
Oh,
That's a lost cause.
and then
A
you
yeah,
have
the
miracle of
Switch hardware
something
just can't handle it.
60 FPS on the Switch. It's a miracle if anything like 60 on there.
and then you have me over here as well. Being disappointed at the lack of preserving games by not making them available on Steam.
I think the only game that I've actually encountered like frame rate issues with, even on PC here recently, was playing the Final Shape, and that was just because of all of the fucking particle effects during the final fight and that. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I have a like fucking $1,000 graphics card in here, and it's still like struggling with all the fucking particle effects at the end of it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Let's I'll give it this. But like it went from like 120 FPS down to like 80. I can't really complain there. But yeah, we stopped basically at where I was correcting myself from the last podcast here about the Final Shapes DLC size, and the next topic will be Ann Arbor bringing in like Sony rebranded their PC publishing license on Steam to PlayStation Publishing LLC. I don't know why it's an LLC when it's fucking Sony, but okay.
Money.
Yeah, that's really all there is to say there. And then Summer Game Fest happened. If you want to break down some of that stuff.
Okay, yeah. I mean, one thing I got from Summer Games Fest is there are like way too many shows to keep track of because like once I was done with Summer Games Fest and the showcase and State of Play and even before the Nintendo Direct, I was thinking to myself, it's like, oh, I still got to watch like the Wholesome Direct, which I did. It was fun. But then I looked at like a list of like other shows that were there, and I'm like, what even are some of these things? There's like the Future Game Show. I forgot to watch the PC Game Show. Apparently, it was nothing interesting.
They
And,
did a little
like,
bit of
so many
Warhammer stuff, I think, and that was about all that interested me.
I also discovered this year that there's something called like the paper. I'm going to make sure I got the name right, but I think it's called the Paperverse Direct. And it's literally like Paper Mario inspired. Paperverse Direct. Paper Mario inspired indie games, which was I watched through. It was fun, but I'm like, okay, we're going a little nuts here, guys.
Yeah, we are.
I miss E3. I miss E3. I didn't think I'd say that, but I miss E3 because it was at least like, okay, here is Tokyo Game Show, here is DICE, here is the fucking QuakeCon, and here is E3, and that was it. That was all of it, and we were done.
No. We need to have Paper First as well now, Vex.
We need to have THQ
Apparently it's been
Nordic.
going on for a couple years. Actually.
We need to have a THQ Nordic Direct. We need to have a goddamn Lick My Taint Direct. I'm like, please stop, please. There was like 85 different YouTube feeds in my inbox. I'm like, mute. I'm done.
That is true, but at the same time, like E3's like always been hanging on a thread. It's always had like bizarre gaps in between, like when they're actually gonna like open and do this, like even before like its final, year.
See, they went too woke and got rid of the fucking booth babes. Okay, that was literally a take on Twitter, by the way. They went too woke and got rid of the booth babes, so that's why it went away.
Booth babes would not have saved that.
No, it was the lack of funding.
I love looking at like booth babes.
I'm like,
for our reference, I'm gonna post in mod stuff like the schedule I saw. I think I saw this on Spawn Wave the first time, but yeah, like this was like the schedule for this year, and yeah. But I just wanted to bring up there was like a lot of shows that I didn't even know like there was one specifically for Latin American devs. I'm like, good for them, but also what?
I mean, it's a localization thing too. That one, because it was all I saw a lot of that. It was all dubbed in LATAM, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty fucking cool, actually. But also, did that need to be a whole feed? Did that need to be a whole feed? That could have just been like streamed to Twitch. Like, the Future Game Show was actually kind of interesting though, because it had a lot of.
I did like it last year. I probably should have watched it, but I was too tired once I found.
I watched like I have like Spottin' Gamings, which in my YouTube feed, which is just a channel that clips a bunch of trailers out of all this shit, and it's like a lifesaver. But they get like no views also. But it's like, okay, this game interests me. I can watch a trailer here, you know. But like it's a good little like clippy channel if you want to follow them. But there was a lot of like interesting concepts. I hate that I'm praising AI in this, but like AI upscaling is one of the coolest things I've seen. Because there was a technology trailer that I saw. I don't know if it was from Future Game Show or something else entirely, but it was Nvidia's AI upscaling took like an old like fucking MS-DOS era game and made it look like it's 4K. I'm not fucking kidding.
Wow.
That's some like resolution enhancement stuff you see in sci-fi shows.
And I'm like, okay, let's use AI for this. Let's do that instead of, like every other like every other like, hey, you like AI? Here is AI in your goddamn Facebook feed.
Now it just comes pre-made in our computers.
On everything and make it half-ass.
Yeah.
That what you've just said then, Pyjams, perfectly sums up AI. It's pre-packaged processed food.
It literally is.
gamers.
It's becoming spam. Like literally the canned meat spam. Like if you want to call spam meat. But like it really is like when I loaded up to track one of my packages while I was overseas, like they had launched a shopping assistant AI in Amazon, but it hadn't went public. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is this? Because there's just a new icon at the bottom, and then I looked the next day and it went live, and it's like, hey, I am your like text assistant here to help you with your shopping trips. I'm like, no, shut the fuck up. I don't need you telling me what I shop for, Amazon. Like, no. You collect enough data from having an Echo in my home. I don't need you knowing my shopping trends anymore.
This isn't super related to what we're talking about, but that does remind me on Trillion game there was like one arc where the characters like start up like an AI online shop, except it's not an AI online shop. They just had their CEO, quote unquote, like on the other end of like the line, just like recommending people stuff to buy. And I'm like, oh man, this is the greatest scam ever.
That is pretty
Beautiful.
funny. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's Inagaki for you. He comes up with great stuff.
I'm like, when I loaded into it, it's like, you were shopping for women's boots. I'm like, yeah, I was looking for demonias, and you're pricing me out of this because I wanted it for fucking angel dust instead of like the stripper heels. I want like little platforms, but nothing is either in my size or they're like $400 fucking resale. I'm like, I'm good. Go away.
Yeah, that seems like a general issue with women's clothing.
Yeah.
I've heard of.
But like there's
yeah,
like,
we should probably get back to games.
There's no good coming from having 8-9 different fucking directs now, because it's just gonna burn people out. And I'm all for having this like broke down by publisher, or not publisher, but by like platform, like Xbox over here, Sony over here, Nintendo over here. That's fine. But like, do we need? And Devolver, I love whatever the fuck they do. They can have 85.
Theirs was fun.
They can have 80 shows a year for all I care, because there's production value in that. But like Guerrilla Collective, like that's a small show that doesn't need to be like 3 hours of content for that. You don't have to have like fucking 18 different like it, or not id, but like fucking, I lost my train of thought, but like all of the little publisher ones are just stupid anyway. Now something that's like a big IP like Warhammer, that makes sense because they have very different like styles of games for all of their different stuff. Or if like, say, because Wizards of the Coast wants to do their own thing with Baldur's Gate now, because Larian's stepped away from that and they're doing their own thing now. D&D is this big branching IP. I know we all have our own thoughts on Wizards of the Coast right now, but like that would make sense to have its own show. Like, okay, we're launching a new edition, and here's a new game, and here's a new platform for D&D Beyond, that kind of thing. That would make sense. But like,
yep, and even Sonic usually has like their own Sonic Central, not even just for Sega games. But I'll be honest, even that, as a Sonic fan, I feel like that could benefit just by being a general Sega Direct. So even though the Sonic brand is definitely big enough to have its own stuff, which is why I did have, except this year, like a whole dedicated like show to itself, it's still like a very scant amount of content that most of the hardcore fans who would watch the show already know, because we're like way too tuned in to the
like
news.
you guys are about as chronically online as the Star Wars fandom in that regard.
Oh yeah.
But like a Sega one would make sense because they have like 3 different paths for Yakuza, and they have all the other random stuff too. And
Say Persona, and they're like reviving so many of their old IPs, like the Jet Set Radio and Golden Axe and everything.
That would make sense for them to have like a big one, like maybe next year.
Yeah, I posted a while back, but there's like this big like, I'll look up an image.
It's a classic IP resurrection thing. Hot take: I like the PS3 Golden Axe Beast Rider thing. That was pretty fun. It was a shitty game overall, but it was fun. And that was a lot of the early PS3 games. Like, they were dumb fun, but they were all shit.
Yeah, like I have, like you want to talk, like, can you imagine if back in the day, if Eye of Judgment did what that dev was doing on Twitter, but instead of it being for Zelda, it was for Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, thank you. That would have killed the franchise faster than fucking Konami's killing it now. But like, yeah, Shinobi. Jesus Christ, I forgot they were resurrecting that. Do you remember how fucking batshit insanely difficult that is? Imagine what they're going to do when they make it into a fucking Souls-like.
Yep. I'm looking forward to what they got here, but those games are like years from now.
Yeah, Streets of Rage is the one I'm looking forward to the most because I love beat 'em ups.
Golden Axe, I'm looking forward to the most out of them.
But like, there's one other studio I think that actually deserves to have a standalone one, and I think you guys will all agree with me. It's fucking Capcom.
Yes.
Didn't Capcom have one?
Capcom's tried though.
Yeah, and every time they try, it's a fucking disaster.
That's the thing. Like, I'm fine with like Capcom and Ubisoft having their shows. It's just that their shows tend to be kind of weak. So
Ubisoft
I don't
is
mind
more
Capcom
of,
having
like-
theirs, but the problem is they
Go ahead.
Capcom like puts their
hates
shows
own
into
product.
I wouldn't say they hate
That's
their
why
own
their shows are
product.
weak.
It's that they don't know how to do a presentation. And
Yeah,
Ubisoft
yeah.
kind of ties theirs into the press more than their fans. That's why those are so weak. But at the same time, Ubisoft has so many fucking franchises they don't bother to touch, and everything they do touch, they turn into Far Cry Light. Like, it's
true.
like the Avatar game is literally just Far Cry with a goddamn Avatar skin and mech suits, right?
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, they turned into basically the same thing. Like, it's, you capture the tower, you go do the thing, you go boop, 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 and then you're done. Like, you've completed the objective. You get a little bit more map revealed, you go stab a dude, you go beat a dude up, and then it's just done. It follows the same path of objectives anymore, and that's why I'm not the biggest Ubisoft fan anymore. And I used to fucking suck their dick constantly. But outside of that, we had a bunch of like little tiny things come out of Nintendo recently.
Oh, we switching up to Nintendo Direct stuff?
But there is one other random thing that I have to say here. Did you guys see the Black Ops 6 file size?
No.
Oh yeah,
what's the-
yeah.
Yeah,
bad is
this leads into another. It's good that you bring this up because it leads into a topic that I really, really want to talk about. But say
Okay.
do the Black Ops. Say the Black Ops size.
Without textures installed. And this is basically like the Warzone package, apparently. They've clarified it since then. Is 300 gigabytes.
Yeah, and this is what I feel like is also lacking in the gaming industry recently is that the games that don't need the most advanced graphics to be sold that also make your computer heat up so fast that it's like you're worried that your computer is going to set on fire.
I bought
I don't
another
even think it's
fan.
bad.
I bought another fan and another hard drive to play Final Shape. I'm not kidding. Because the Final Shape,
Yeah.
after all of the DLC is installed for Destiny 2, is 300 gigabytes as well. Like,
Yeah.
that is
God,
ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna bring it up right now as well, and I'll always go back to this as a perfect example for myself personally is that I get more enjoyment out of say I've got more enjoyment, more game time, more pleasure of just exploring the world of Guild Wars 2 on 55 gigabytes as opposed to say playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And I like Jedi Fallen Order, but that has like what 109 gigabytes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even the file size that's my issue. It's the fact that we've lost the art of fucking file compression. There is no
Mhm.
reason.
That part.
There is no reason Call of Duty needs to be 300 gigabytes. I'm sorry. You have 18 guns that are all just different variations of the same thing. You have the same 6 maps recompiled over and over again. And the fact that this is just Warzone, which is a battle royale, it, like it's that package. Like it's just the fucking battle royale. It's Rebirth Island. It's like all of that bullshit, right? You or whatever the fucking map is that they're currently rotating through on fucking Warzone. They're like fucking Fortnite is only like 100 gigabytes, and that has 4 game modes actually, counting Festival. Like there is no reason for something to be that huge.
Yeah, and it's brought up another problem that you've literally just mentioned now, the fact that in order to play this game, you need more components for your computer as well to play it, which is going to also dip into using more money as well.
In a time where people don't really have the money to spend on luxury items. I'm fortunate enough to have enough money to go and buy another 400 gigabyte or a $400 like 2 terabyte NVMe drive, right? Like there's no, that's not the case for a lot of people though, right? You know, like nobody really wants to go out and buy an extra hard drive to play their favorite game every fucking year because it's gotten so bloat heavy that you've lost the whole plot. And it is very much a Western game developer issue. It is not something that you get from like a JRPG unless you're playing like Final Fantasy, you know, the MMO like Final Fantasy 14, where it has like multiple expansions, and at that point it makes sense, right? You have like 8 different expansions
for like a decade right now.
Which most of it was a single flower that took up all the space.
It's scary. It's scary when you think about this, guys. The fact that in about 10 years' time, we may potentially get a game that costs 1,000 gigabytes to run.
Yeah, we're getting close to that. We're getting close to a terabyte game with Call of Duty, and that is fucking asinine to me. Like
I feel like this is just a whole plan to either A, sell us more hardware space, or B, get us more accepting of the need for cloud gaming because our local hard drives are just not going to be able to deal with it.
No, they're not.
I mean, I've utilized cloud gaming with like the Xbox Game Pass, the xCloud shit, and it's a lot better than it used to be. So that is very much a possibility. Yep. And if you saw Discussing Film recently tweeted out that Sony's going to be slowly phasing out optical hardware, like Blu-rays. So they could be going digital only for the next PlayStation. And we've seen the marketing plan for the next Xbox during the trial for buying Activision.
It's going to be a cloud hybrid.
Yep. So device. Like that is a very big possibility that is their game plan. But PC gamers, on the other hand, are not as accepting of that. Like you look on Reddit and deeper down in the internet, and you see there are like full-on groups full of piracy and like preservation avenues, and I'm 100% involved in a lot of that, where I'm trying to like preserve all of my like my physical hardware because I realize disk rot is a thing. So I have a media server here at home where I just file dump all of my movies as I buy them. So I have access to them everywhere anyway. And I'd very much like to do that with a lot of my old school like PC games once I dig them out of storage. You know, because I've had some of my fucking PC games since I was a kid. So like OG Doom on fucking floppy disks, like that kind of shit. So I would love to file up a lot of that and put it up on like archive.org, like the OG, like not even the 3.5 inch, but like the 5.5 inch floppies of a lot of my uncle's games too that I inherited. So I would love to throw all that up on like archive.org and, you know, have at least an archive for people to experience those older games now.
Yeah. As well. Yeah. It's glad you brought that up as well, because I would honestly love for people to experience Heart of Darkness, which is probably one of the hardest, like, infuriating platformers ever, and it will be just amazing to see people.
Did you go to Sorry, while I was over in the UK, have you been to the game over by Bristol?
No, I haven't. No,
I saw
haven't.
it there. I saw it there,
yeah,
but it was like
thank-
300 quid. I'm like,
for Heart of Darkness?
yeah. I'm like,
No, because I got it on PlayStation secondhand for eight quid. I'm like, there's no way.
that's how inflated the game market is for some of those games that have gotten like
Mhm.
catty and some people to play them, right?
Yeah.
And
but,
Tyler, you would know like the popularity of somebody like Caddy more than Luke, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like when he plays a game, it does kind of go up in, or he does a video on it, it does kind of go up in price, and then it dips back down, and that's like
Fair
the
enough.
cycle of influencer culture as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love it as well. Like I said earlier, if Steam just got their act together and be like, okay, there's so many defunct companies out there right now. Can we put
Infogrames doesn't exist, and I don't know who the hell absorbed them. Party Jams, do you know?
Sorry, I couldn't hear because you were talking over each other. Which company?
Infogrames. I think they got absorbed by Activision, but I'm not entirely sure.
Wait, what did they do?
They
'Cause
did.
I'm assuming if you're asking me, it's like they
They were
some
like
games that I would-
RPG heavy back in the day. That's why I figured of anybody you would probably know more.
Oh, okay. I mean, I mean, when I just Googled them, like real quick, Atari is what I've gotten, and I know Atari's still technically around, but okay, I'm not sure if it's like Atari or Hasbro. Might be one
Hasbro,
of
they did
them.
a lot of licensed games for them too, like the board game stuff, like the Sorry game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Hasbro probably owns them at this point.
Yeah, that would make sense.
'Cause, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always surprised like by what Hasbro owns sometimes.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. But like there's that's a topic I wanted to bring up anyway, like the price disparity between Europe and here for like retro games, because I picked up
because
Haunting Ground over there for £50, and
okay.
and it's like a $400 game over here.
Oh, wow.
I'm not kidding.
So yeah, I was waiting for you to bring that up because I did tag you on that, like your take of game infiltration in the UK since you've now been
I spent
over
more
here
than a day over there. Yeah, I like it, it's very interesting, and like it's fun because they have both like the PAL and the like ESRB era or the ESRB ran stuff, the NTSC coded games. But like I have a modded fucking PS2 anyway, so it doesn't matter what fucking version I buy, because both Ann Arbor and I are those degenerates that modded the hell out of their PS2s to fucking play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. But like I was able to find, and I'm sure nobody in this call gives a shit, but I found the entire collection of Star Ocean for £80 over there.
Wait, why would you think we wouldn't care about that?
I didn't think anybody here played Star Ocean but me.
I haven't, but it's a series like I want to get into because like got like on PC the 4K version of some game, but it wasn't running properly. So I'm like, okay, well, crap.
It got patched. So try it again. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. And then there's a Star Ocean 2 remake that came out. That's also I think on my wish list. So yeah.
Final Hope was the game that actually got me to go back and play all of them. And then I fell in love with that franchise. I will say, like, the older games are fucking, they're insanely difficult. So you need to grind. They're like Dragon Quest level difficult.
Okay, I'm fine if it's like grind based, because like if it's like Souls like RPG, then it's like okay, well this is gonna be a pain. But if it's like old school Dragon Quest grinding, I've played DQ1 like all the way through, and I'll probably be playing like 3 when the remake comes out.
I will say
I'm all about that kind of game.
Focus on leveling up your main character the most for the first 2 or 3 batches of bullshit you gotta deal with in that remake. Because I played the version on the fucking PSP and I bashed my head against the wall. Because I didn't realize it was Dragon Quest style until it was too late. But like,
No, I can totally handle that.
Last Hope is there are like 4 different paths you can go for a bunch of shit, and it's one of the most intricate games of the 360 era, I think. But like £80 for that versus like over here, because I sold my original copies of them when I fucking got a Vita, and I hate myself for that. But like it to replace all that, it would have been like $300-400, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! The fact I found this for £80, I'm like, God, I love this, and I found fucking that. And it's probably because the remake is out now, but like Thousand Year Door was $50 out, or the equivalent of 50 US out the door for the GameCube version. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me! And it was Black Label, not Player's Choice, so that's even more insane to find. So like I feel like because Europe has the less of a the UK/Europe gaming community has less of a like desire to make retro gaming into a fucking profit than the US does. It's a lot easier to find some of that. But then you have those like rarer titles that you know, like Haunting Ground, and you have Heart of Darkness, stuff like that are a lot harder to find. I was hoping I'd find a copy of Rule of Rose to find like a true litmus test for the fucking market over there, because that was like that's like my holy grail at this point, because I got Folklore finally, and that was my holy grail for the PS3. Fucking Rule of Rose for PS2, that's my holy grail. If I can find that
Rule of Rose, I will try and find that right now for you, Fex.
It's like $1,000 over here. I've seen it in the wild in the US, and I'm like, this is a month's rent.
Rule of Rose. I found it. The European package, and yep, it's one of those. Guess how much it is over here?
£1,500 probably.
No. £595.
I'm broke.
But that's a mint copy.
That's
one with
fucking crazy.
no manual box is £465.
That's about the size of it here. Like loose copies go for like 800. Like it's fucking crazy.
That is like really an issue that I really wish would get sorted. It's like all these older games that I just get.
Nobody owns a license to that game. It's abandoned. Like that's the thing. That's the thing.
So
that is an abandoned game.
Why can't Steam put it on Steam?
Because it was specifically coded to be a PS2 exclusive. It is embedded in the hardware of that game.
And then you get something like Castlevania Symphony of the Night for that I would really want to play, but it's one of those
There's no
games.
excuse there. There's none. Because it's on Xbox Live Arcade. It could easily be thrown on Game Pass. It could be... I think it actually technically is on Game Pass through one of the collections. But like there's no reason that can't be on fucking Steam. It wasn't on any other marketplace. There's no reason that can't be on Steam.
If Final Fantasy, if pretty much all the Final Fantasy games can be on Steam, Castlevania can be on. Like,
here's the funny thing.
They literally have so many of the classic Castlevania games, except for that one game.
Here's the funny thing, though. Like, out of all the Final Fantasies, every single one has been ported in some capacity besides the 13 trilogy.
Yeah, I find that weird as someone who really enjoys the 13 trilogy.
I love Lightning.
Like, where's my remake?
Like, that's the thing, right? Like, I didn't realize that until somebody tweeted it out. I'm like, that is technically factually correct. Because now you have 14 on Xbox even. Like, every game is on every platform at this point. And technically you can play most of them through the iPhone even now. Through fucking Delta and the other, like, I forget the name of the fucking PS1 emulator that they got on there. Like, you can play like 90% of them on your fucking iPhone. And it's insane to think about. Like, I know it's like a litmus test of like what kind of a gamer you are, if you like or you don't like 13. I have mixed feelings about the original one, but like by the time you get to like Lightning Returns, like this is a phenomenal trilogy. Like, it is one of the most well-rounded stories.
Like
Um,
13, like I get way one of the reasons I'm glad I started with 13, like as my first like mainline Final Fantasy game, was because like a lot of people were saying like it's a good one to go into because you don't have the biases of the old ones, and I think that's very true. Because if you were played 13 thinking this is going to be classic Final Fantasy, then yeah, you'd be disappointed. But I think in and of themselves, there's like really fun games.
very much so. And
The
like,
only issue with the first one is the fact that it's so linear.
yeah, no, 100%. That's my biggest complaint.
Sure,
And
but
I,
it's
Gameplay wise,
extremely
like I
linear,
loved it
and the
because it was
tutorialization of the game takes a while. But I think even then, it's just like that's not as bad as I think people made it out to be. Because I've played like linear games before, that start from A to B. It's just that Final Fantasy
you're
just
used to
usually
an open
doesn't have
world.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're not used to open world, like when I started with that game, then yeah, it doesn't bug you as much.
Okay, so with that being said, like, do you think that's what the next Project Remaster is? Because there are technically two other remasters that were leaked during the GeForce hack, right? You had the 8 remake slash 9 remakes being leaked. Do you think
Right? Yeah.
13 is the other one?
Like logically, that would make sense. But in a weird way, I almost feel like it's naive for me to believe that. I feel like it's gonna be something else that like some other like weird niche thing. Like what if it's just like I don't know, a tactics remake or like
I
Final
would
Fantasy
love a
Type Zero.
Tactics remake though. Like that is one
Yeah,
of
I'm
my
saying it wouldn't
favorites.
be a good idea, but I'm just saying that there's like it could be anything else.
But like the funny thing is, like, Final Fantasy has taken so many paths as a franchise. You have Tactics, you have Dissidia, you have, the weird one-off kind of style games like 15
Now
and
we have
13.
like the 7 with like its own gotcha game attached to the story.
Uh, sorry. That fucking game is a money pit. Um
Mhm.
But like and it's not every fucking Square gotcha game is bullshit money pit. You have to sink money into it. Like it was the same way with fucking Union Cross. It's this game. It's so annoying. But like like Final Fantasy is such a unique concept for me because it's done so many different things, and that's why I love the franchise. But I have such mixed feelings towards some of the things that they've done. Like I hate linear gameplay in 13 because I started with technically 1, but 7 was the first one I played by myself and bought with my own money. But my dad and I used to play 1 on the NES. Like of all the baby pictures, I still have that one where I'm sitting in his lap playing fucking Final Fantasy 1 with the goddamn map. Remember when there was stuff in the box with the game, the map laid out, and we were plotting our way
I
across.
do love that.
Uh,
I remember growing up, like I would be the one, like it was me, my younger brother, and 2 cousins I grew up with. Like they would be immediately starting the game. I'm like, wait, don't you guys want to read through the books and stuff? And they're like, no, what? We bought the game. And I'm like, but the extra stuff is cool, extra story and everything. Ah,
uh,
God, I miss those days.
like that's something I love about limited run. Is they go so overboard with all the extras, but then it takes you 87 years to get your fucking shit.
Yeah, I mean, limited run's a
Right
good
back.
service. It's just run by limited run, so
And the artificial limiting of everything, and the fact that they have the ability to repress stuff for like their bigger sellers is so stupid to me. Because like I don't know who did the physical of Slay the Princess. I think it was I Am 8-bit. Um, but they do
couldn't
the
tell you.
same thing, but they don't limit it fully, right? Like Stray is still in circulation, for example. Like before I got like Go from Amazon, I was still seeing that shit in like a couple months ago, and I'm like, wait, this game is like a year old, and they were brand new sealed copies. I'm like, huh, that's really cool because I'm so used to like the limited run model of like it's got like 3 months of printing and then it's gone, right? Uh, but like it is such a, and now fucking Limited Run's under so much fucking fire for like sending out like CDRs instead of actual disc of like shit. Did you see that controversy?
No, I hadn't actually.
Yeah. So for one of their game, or I think it's like two now actually, they've sent out like CDRs instead of like actual like artwork on their physicals, and they're like, "Oops, this
That
should
is
have."
just garbage.
Oops,
Because it's
that
like
was
you had one job.
Yeah, you slap a label on top of it if nothing else. Come on, guys. But like it was so weird. I didn't know if, at first I thought maybe it was just an aesthetic choice because it was like a really really old game that it was happening to. I thought maybe it was just like this nostalgia of having this like you burn it at home kind of thing. But then I realized like, wait, this is a fucking like $1 million business. They shouldn't be doing this. Like it's not some mom and pop shop. But like while we're speaking on RPGs, you guys all saw Expedition 33, right?
Yes.
Like this
No,
is
I didn't.
really, look it up on Steam, dude. Like
Okay.
this is a Tyler coded game too.
What's this?
Expedition 33.
Oh,
Yeah,
Look,
I mean, I wasn't sure if we were done with like all the Game Fest stuff, but I have to say, like Xbox and I guess Nintendo, but they're a separate thing, did like a great job with their presentations, and like this was probably like still one of my favorite surprises.
yeah, like
In that presentation.
like Nintendo, like
Wow.
Nintendo
Wow.
for me, like we know we're at the end of the life cycle because we're getting the final launch game finally in Metroid Prime 4. So
Yeah.
that's what.
Oh.
Oh, there's an Ann Arbor. Speaking of
timing, Ann Arbor.
Expedition 33 time, my friend.
Surprise German.
A surprise German. It's better than surprise anal. But but like you were one of the ones that were like really on board with this game too. So I want to get your thoughts first. So you just popped in unannounced.
Yeah, might as well go for it, man.
Let me quickly remind myself what that game was.
It's
it's the one live RPG that is like
that RPG. Yeah. I really, first of all, the graphic looks insane. It looks great. But I want what I find is the most interesting thing about it is the gameplay.
That's
a huge
what
problem. Yeah, a huge problem that I have nowadays with turn-based RPGs is they are fucking boring.
I wouldn't say they're boring. So
I'm not going to
I
agree
think
with
they
that.
are
Just
not
keep you're going
as-
with your thought, man.
I think the problem with that is they're not interactive enough. I just say, what will I move? What move do I want to use? This one, press A. And the gameplay in Expedition 33 looks extremely interactive. But like, always pay attention. Like, there's always something on the screen that you have to do. And I really like that. There's not... the gameplay doesn't look like there's like room where just nothingness. But something that I have with most JRPGs nowadays.
Yeah. Let's see. I do agree with like a lot of the like turn-based ones being like barren at times, but I wouldn't say they're boring.
I just love
yeah,
turn-based, so I'm not
boring.
gonna agree, but I do think that one of the things as like a huge fan of turn-based games like Dragon Quest and those classic RPGs is that they can feel a little samey at times, where you're effectively playing very similar games in terms of like find attack in a menu and then just keep going, where most of the like differences are in, of course, the characters and stories, but gameplay wise in terms of the strategies that the mechanics allow you to have. But the turn-based element itself is almost always the same, as opposed to, say, action, where it's like, well, it could be reaction-based, it could be QTE-based, it could be combo-based. So there's more you can do in an action. So the fact that Expedition 33 does what I think one of my favorite games of all time, Bravely Default, did, is they found a way to kind of like change up the turn-based system by introducing something where it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense in order to like do more with the turn-based game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you have said. for those reasons, I don't think it doesn't look samey. It doesn't look boring. I know boring's a harsh word, especially for a game.
No,
But
and
just
that's
as you-
fair. Like if you find it
Yeah,
boring, you
but-
find it boring. I just don't agree.
Yeah, I think you've worded it the best. They all feel samey. Like I played a lot of turn-based JRPGs because that was my favorite RPG genre in the past. I played a lot of them. I can tell you, 99% of them gameplay-wise melted together into one pot because they all feel the same.
Yeah, they
And
do.
that's why I think they start to become boring. And so this change they have made looks like extremely intriguing and something.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
so
will need to go back. I need to call my sister.
oh yeah, that's fine, man.
Alright, fair enough.
I was wondering. Oh, sorry, Luke. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying fair enough to the Ann Arbor.
Okay.
I
Well,
just looked at the
I did
game-
want to ask Vex. Tyler, go ahead.
I was about to say, I just looked at Expedition 33, and I get what Vex means. That looks like a very me game.
Okay, you can go ahead and talk on it.
Uh,
Then I want your impressions.
I'll just I saw like just like the page on Steam for it. I'm like, huh. It is a very me game because one of my favorite games that like one of my favorite games in like recent years was Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, good choice.
Where it's like an action RPG that's all about positioning and like attacking from the side, attacking from the back.
Yep.
Else, not to mention this with a gripping story, and also people being British and shit.
So,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. If you want to finish your thoughts, go ahead. I
yeah.
just had to
Well,
ask
this-
Vex
this-
something
this-
later.
Like this definitely looks like something up my alley. Definitely something I'm gonna be keeping an eye on. Thank you, Vex.
Yeah, I thought it would be up your alley because it gave me like a little bit Persona vibes with some of the combat. It also gave me a bit of that like Xenoblade Xenoblade style in the stuff too. So I'm like, this is something that Tyler would love. I don't know if it'll be on a platform you have though. I didn't really check too deeply into like the platforms for it.
I mean, it's coming out on like most platforms, I think, like PlayStation, Xbox, obviously, because it was in the presentation. It's on Game Pass too, I think.
Wait,
And-
I have the
and
trailer
Steam,
open. Wait. Oh god, they
I feel like the
didn't
only
showcase
platform
it in
not
the
is
trailer.
like Switch, probably.
Oh, there's no way in fucking hell this is run on the Switch.
No.
I
but,
mean,
like,
the Switch could run Xenoblade Chronicles that looks almost as good, and Witcher 3.
but Witcher
Yeah,
3
but, like,
did
I
have
always
like
think
stuttering issues.
Monolith
sometimes.
Soft are just like geniuses.
I would say
Maybe there's like a graphically reduced version of it.
or cloud-based
that runs on the
version
Switch.
like Kingdom Hearts, which is a
cloud-based,
20-year-old game that can't run natively on it for some stupid fucking reason. Anyway,
It's not that it can run natively. It 100% can. They were just too lazy to make a working port, so they just said, "Yeah, we stream it."
See,
That's the only
think it was
reason.
lazy. I think it was like a decision where they wanted to test the waters with the cloud gaming, and they just used Kingdom Hearts as sort of like a test dummy.
yeah, maybe
Yeah,
they
I
were
think-
like, "Can we use this technology to get Final Fantasy VII Remake to run on this?" No, we cannot.
Well, that's fine. Good luck, Kingdom Hearts fans.
And
Just give me a goddamn cartridge and I'll buy it again. I just bought it on fucking Steam. I've been playing it on my
They'll
fucking
do
Steam
it.
Deck.
I have it on my good old PS5, and that's the only place I'm going to play it.
You're not buying it on Steam after all? Come on, give your money to
I
no more.
have the part 1. I have the part 1 bought twice. once on Steam. Square Enix is a. I have a weakness to Square Enix. I'm the first one who's
Listen.
going to confess it.
Listen, like I get it.
You are the same.
I bought Final Fantasy 1 like 18 different times on the fucking DS before they had a native Nintendo account. So I get it. Okay.
So the problem is Square Enix did that what every other company wants to do. They sell this whole game second time with like $10 worth of DLC, but there's a whole game again. And I am a sucker for that company.
There are a few games I'll sink that much money into, but I'll buy fucking Windmaker again if it comes out.
Nerd. I will buy fucking Elden Ring again. Just for the sake of Elden Ring.
Come on, you've had to beat the DLC by now.
Oh, I'm already 100% of the DLC.
So, what do you think?
So, I think that, I don't think it should be a big topic in this episode if you're still recording. But it's like, it's everything that makes Elden Ring good. Elden Ringly, is there and like better. Like the exploration is better, the boss fights are better, everything is better. But they also make the problems of Elden Ring itself worse, in my opinion. As I already wasn't that such a big Elden Ring fan. I think it's the third best game From Software only did, and the problems I had with the base game were like worse in Elden Ring. But most of them are like open world problems I have.
Yep, that seems to be the general consensus. So I just wanted it from like a diehard FromSoft fan. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah. So literally the consensus is it's Elden Ring with more Elden Ring in it.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I was seeing a lot of people bitching if they were like, new game +9 or shit, and it was like completely bullshit difficulty for them. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point of it.
New Game +9 is in general just a fucking piece of garbage. Never play past New Game 7. I've literally made 3 different characters for, in anticipation for this DLC, with whom I played through this whole fucking game. 3 different ones with all 3 different builds, so I could experience it in multiple different variations.
Yep. So we also are getting Fantasian out of Apple jail. So this is setting a precedent.
It's been rumored and leaked for so long, and we're finally getting it.
This kind of sets a precedence for getting more games out of Apple jail too, right? So, like, say that
and
Sonic
I mean, there have been other ones too. I think Pocket Jockey, for example, was one that was on Apple Arcade, and that was on others. And then obviously Shantae was kind of it's about to leave Apple Arcade, but it's already on other platforms.
Yeah. Shantae is its own fucking thing too, because we still get like physical Game Boy cartridges of that franchise, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that is a good point.
But like it's its own fucking enigma, and I kind of love that for it. But we also are getting Luke, say with me, Hello Kitty,
Island Adventure.
Butter's favorite game.
Wait, is it actually coming?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh wait, yeah, it's already on the Apple Arcade.
Oh my god!
I
legitimately thought that you were just trolling right there and asking me to join in with the troll. Oh my god! I have not noticed that as well. I have not noticed that. My
partner about freaked out when I told her it was real, because she is a huge Animal Crossing fan, and she's also loves like fucking the Sanrio stuff. I'm like, so here are your 2 favorite things all mixed together. And also for me as a South Park fan, this is hilarious.
This is hilarious.
Like, it is literally Animal Crossing with a fucking Sanrio skin. That's all it is.
Here's the thing. Since we've been talking about indie and sort of like fan games, there was a make-believe game in The Simpsons called Lee Cardell's Putting Challenge, and somebody actually made that into an actual game.
Oh, good for them.
Somebody made.
Yeah, with Hello Kitty.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with Hello Kitty Island Adventure, I also first heard about it in South Park, but I thought that it was like a real game back then as well. And so when I saw it on Apple Arcade for the first time, and I'm sorry, like I would have told you about it when it first popped up if I knew you'd be this excited. But when I first saw it, they're like, oh, cool, they ported this game and maybe made it like a reboot for modern times. That's nice. I'll give it a try. I didn't realize that this was actually the first time a game with this name existed because it just existed in my brain since
But
that.
I don't know if you heard me before, but since you brought up South Park, earlier we were talking about like replayability. Vex. South Park: The Stick of Truth is one of my examples for replayability because of the fact that I like the storyline in that game, and also you get to play, and also it's fun to play all the different classes.
So we can all agree that
South Park
Snow
is
Day
good.
was bullshit, right? It doesn't
I
count.
I have not played Snow Day yet, so I'm.
It's not really worth it, man. I'm not.
I looked at it and I thought again, I'm being kind of like a hypocritical hipster here, but why would they change the graphical design for Snow Day?
It
I
kind
think
of
they
makes
just
sense.
wanted to make a 3D game.
It does make sense in the traversal of it, I think. Like how the field of vision is in that one. At least to me, it does make sense from that standpoint. But they could have done it in 2D space as well. Like there was no real need to do it.
They definitely could have, but I think they just wanted to try to make a 3D game. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think also they just wanted to like really capture on that particular genre.
Yeah.
Snow Day is kind of disappointing because like the other two South Park games, I mean, besides being like both great games and great representations of the South Park franchise, they really felt like games that
we'll talk
Matt
about
and Trey
that
really
later, Ann
wanted
Arbor.
to make.
Oh,
absolutely. And like we're passionate about. But Snow Day felt like more like a corporate type of game.
Yeah, it kind of does. Because
I was also saying like I don't know if you two would agree with me because we're the South Park fans here. I feel like it also wanted to capture that feeling of being stuck at home for a snow day, but also like how you would build the forts and how you would use the tactics in that versus like say with the traditional fantasy RPG for Stick of Truth or the like actiony style in like Fractured Butthole. It was kind of more of a like tactical based style in that. It didn't really like play too heavily into tactics, but it did like use that space well in that regard. But the gameplay, it's not as replayable. It's not realistically as fun as those other two. But I will say it did at least succeed in the fact that it did explore a different type of game.
Fair enough. But yeah, going to what you were saying, Pyjams, about it being a corporate thing, I feel like you can tell that, as opposed to it being a game that Trey and Matt wanted to do, because the big difference between that and the two other games is that they had basically tie-in episodes for the games, like with the Stick of Truth, they had the Black Friday trilogy. With Fractured Butthole, they had the Coon and Friends episodes before the game.
Well, we also
came
have the new format for the show too now, so maybe they haven't had a chance to do a Snow Day tie-in on that regard. But it's way past time to do it now. They could have done a special on Paramount Plus if they wanted to, you would think.
Yeah.
Because like we've shit out a goddamn Prime episode, a Prime energy drink episode, and an Ozempic episode. Like we could have done something like that for Snow Day. And it would maybe made more sense canonically, but I don't know if it was like Ubisoft needed to make a game to keep the license for it, and they're just like back in the day when they made that really really bad Fantastic Four movie that never saw the light of day until recently, back in the 70s or 80s, I think it was. They to keep the license, Fox shit out a movie and then locked it in a vault, kind of like they did Batgirl. Warner did to Batgirl. And then it just recently saw the light of day because the public domain license expired. I don't know if we'll have that happen at some point for like Batgirl and the
We can
Wile
only
E. Coyote.
hope, because I'm very curious. Like,
I am too.
What?
Because the general consensus for everybody that saw the Batgirl movie was that it was a phenomenal movie, right? It wasn't finished visual effects wise, but the plot was like the best of the DCEU. So I'm very curious to see that. And I would love to see the Wile E. Coyote movie too. I was hoping to hell that somebody would fucking leak that shit on Twitter like they did the SpongeBob movie.
Plus, with the gun universe coming out, it's going to be an interesting retrospective of like the DCEU movie that never showed up. Once we are like in the middle of that franchise and thinking yourselves, I wonder how things would have changed if this movie had come out.
I will say, from what I've seen of the Superman suits and stuff, I don't give two fucking shits about Superman. I think he's a stupid fucking hero. I love what he stands for as a concept, but I just fucking hate overpowered superheroes unless they're made as a parody, right? And like Saitama, for example, I love something like that. But like from the perspective of that, I love everything, that the look, the feel. It feels like an authentic comic book movie so far, what we've seen. And I feel like that's the one thing that they could actually get a leg up on Marvel for. But this isn't a movie podcast. This is a gaming one. I will say,
We'll make a different podcast for movies later.
Yeah.
I think we have that ground covered plenty on the internet, and most of them are negative, and I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
What is the consensus right now on the new Mario and Luigi, you guys? I don't like
Great.
the art style.
Oh, the alpha.
Wait, what?
Hunt! You shut your face, Vex!
Go on,
I
Tyler, say
Yeah.
your piece.
I like the 2D chibi sprites better than this, okay?
I agree. I like the 2D chibi sprites more as well, but for a 3D Mario, this like comic style, it looks great. I think it's like the best version of Mario that could be in a 3D style that it could be. And it looks like fun. I just like the bright and brilliant colors. in
Oh,
it.
these games are always fun. I just like the 2D chibi sprites more.
Yeah, I agree, but I wouldn't. But that's not a reason to call it 3D art style that looks great and ugly.
Yeah, Tyler, you were going to say something?
I'm very excited.
Yeah, so for my part, the game does look good. It looks like a authentic Mario and Luigi game. I think I was just surprised when it first came out, because I'm like, hold on a second, Alpha Dream is dead. What's going on here? And like, to my knowledge, we don't know exactly who is like developing this, but we know that some people that were behind the original series are at least a part of it. So I'm not sure if it's just like an internal studio that just absorbs some employees, but it feels weird that Nintendo is being secretive on
I'm trying to
this.
think of the name of the studio.
Did we
I'll be
like,
honest,
learn about
I
it?
don't even have a Switch. I literally do not care about the game. It just looks great.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't either, my friend, but it's like I'm glad that this series continues to exist, because like it's another like Mario RPG that has come back, and like with this Thousand Year Door and the Super Mario RPG remake that came out recently, like Nintendo's at least like revisiting this formula, and I hope it'll lead to something for Sonic in the RPG realm, like a good RPG, because we only have that like one bad RPG made back in
So
the day.
you guys are familiar
We had
with
a Sonic Chronicles remake, boy!
so
Tyler,
you
not
guys
stream- no
remember
streaming and recordings.
do you guys remember the studio Indie Cube?
No, what did they do?
No.
They were in charge of the Mario Party series when Hudson Soft wasn't doing it. And
like after like 5 and stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're still in charge of it. But it kind of gives me their feel, if you get what I mean. Because like they had a specific art style for the boards in the world, and that's kind of what this gives me the vibe of. And they were not universally liked with how they handled the Mario Party franchise. I had a lot of times, like the microphone gimmick and the like, especially like the fucking ones on the Wii U were universally hated, and they made that. So I feel like maybe that's why they're giving it a little, we're not saying who's making it kind of thing.
Maybe, but the recent Mario parties I think have been more like looked well upon, like especially with like the one they announced in this direct. Like it looked like honestly one of the best Mario parties like in a long while.
Yeah, so they did Mario Party 9, Mario Party Island Tour, Mario Party 10, which was the one that was like universally panned.
Yeah. Those are all pretty bad.
But they also did Mario Party Superstars and the new one as well they're working on. So I'm not entirely sure.
New Blood probably.
That could be. It could be New Blood helps them, but they're not listed as a developer for this, so I don't know. I can't really say, but they do give me that kind of vibe in the art direction of it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I'm a boomer and I like the 2D art style for this, but I do think it looks like a fantastic game in general. It's just off-putting to me being used to like the 3DS and 2DS ones. I was very shocked that we have a Looney Tunes game in general, but a sports game while we also have another like Nintendo sports thing coming out. I'm like, why announce 2 sports games at once? It's kind of stupid to me. The Funko Pop game did not surprise me at all when you mentioned that, Ann Arbor, because I was watching this chat as I was busy. Because it's already technically been announced for other platforms, and it's just a shill. It's literally so they can keep licenses for some shit that they haven't printed stuff for.
It literally looked like garbage. I'll be honest, that was by far the ugliest games of them all.
Well, I mean, it's also Funko Pops in a video game space, so why?
And we all know how like Funko Pops are.
Looks literally to my left 5 feet at all of the Kingdom Hearts Funko Pops that exist, -3.
I mean, you also like you like ugly things. I mean, you like Aqua.
I mean, you like Shion, so you can't say anything.
Well, we both like Kingdom Hearts. We both aren't allowed to say anything.
Exactly. We have sold our soul to Lord Nomura. I am very, very happy.
I got my soul back. I got
bullshit.
my soul back.
Bullshit. It's in my jar.
No. It's not in the cum jar, please.
I can put it in the cum jar if you want it. Anyway, I am very, very happy that they showed a little bit more of Luigi's Mansion 2 before it came out. Because that did sell me on getting the remake. So that's something I'll be buying in a couple weeks. I am very
surprised on that one, just because I think that was one of the remakes that has been coming up in the controversies of recent Nintendo remakes. But all right, I mean, I think it's fine to put it on the Switch because now you have all the Luigi's Mansions.
Exactly. That's why I'm buying it, so I can have it all on one platform.
And that's fair, honestly. I just don't think it should be full price because it's not that much better than the 3DS version, and I know because I've played that one.
That's just Nintendo in general. They always put everything in it for full price.
No, not really.
Yeah, that was a whole topic we had.
Metroid Prime remake wasn't full price. There's been a couple of them that.
Yeah, but that was like the one exception, and that's why it's weird that they do it for the rest.
I feel like they probably won't have a full price for Donkey Kong Country Remastered either. Because
no, they do.
It's announced the price for it.
Yeah, I'll pull it up a source just so you know I'm not making this stuff up.
Because that is a fucking 25-year-old game.
And I fucking love that people like complain about the graphics of it. With Nintendo being the ones who always say graphics do not matter.
I guess you were kind of half asleep while we were still doing that part, Vex. But here, I'm posting in mod stuff right now. The link directly to Nintendo's store.
What?
God damn it, Nintendo.
This is why I had that whole discussion before, because I'm like, they were bringing DK back at full price. They're doing Luigi's Mansion at full price.
I kind of half-tuned that portion out for a lot of it. I'm not going to lie. But, like, what is...
Welcome to Kontrolled Khaos, guys. Where nobody's listening. Not even
Narbo's winning.
But, like, I'm also trying to figure out my my plans for the weekend here. Because I'm trying to.
I'm currently sending applications for internship.
Yeah, me too. But like, there is one thing that is really cool to me, and I feel like probably Tyler and I are the only ones that care about this one. It's the Marvel Arcade bundle.
Yeah, I do not care.
Because it means Marvel versus Capcom is not dead in the water.
It's not just that it's not dead in the water. Did you see that they're bringing the arcade exclusive characters to consoles now?
I did not know that.
Yes, so that
Holy
means they got the license back to specific characters, which means we might get really, really cool canonical shit in the next mainline Marvel vs. Capcom, because some of these characters have been technically dead in the Marvel vs. Capcom universe. So what would the ramifications be moving down that timeline? That's what's really got me kind of, I don't even really play fighting games anymore, but that one just really got my brain itching a little bit.
That's taking my brain for a ride.
Take you for a ride. But like that was a really cool one, and I am very curious like how they'll handle this, if it's just like an emulator version that they're bringing out, or if they're actually overhauling it like they did the Darkstalkers one. Because that was the only game in that last bundle that wasn't a fucking ROM. Was the Darkstalkers ones. Which is fucking funny to me, because this is coming to a Nintendo platform, and we all know, like, that is literally how their online system runs, is it's just all ROMs of their old games. They're not even, like, really overhauled. And speaking of, how the hell is the Four Swords gonna run on the online front? Because, like...
Oh, yeah, that's co-op.
Yeah. Because, like, not only is it co-op, but it is co-op dependent on, at least for the original version, having a Game Boy Advance. And then with the GameCube one, it is also dependent on having the link adapter. So I'm very curious how that will function. Because obviously, like, you had the port to the GameCube, and then you had the original Four Swords. So that one will be really interesting how they get that functional, since it'll just be a ROM anyway. You will probably be the only one that really cares about the visual novel. Well, maybe Tyler as well. The visual novel thing from the Danganronpa team that got announced.
Yep.
You mean the
Yep,
fucking
100
strategy
lines.
game? That game looks
Yeah.
awesome. And I've never played Danganronpa.
Just for reference, when the Nintendo Direct was happening, me and Arbor and Tyler, I think, we're all watching that live.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we kind of all had that reaction. And so the 100 Lines is like a game that I did want to talk about during our next gaming podcast, which is now. And what's funny to me is reading the interviews after the announcement. Like Kodaka, the Danganronpa creator, he like basically said, like, we put in like a lot of money. We're basically gambling our company's future on this game. And I'm like, that is insane. But also, I respect the hell out of it.
Larian did that twice now. From Software does with every fucking game they have, because they're not really that well off.
Yeah, Larian I can see because they're like a smaller studio. FromSoft I'm more surprised about, actually. But it's still like pretty, because like with Tokyo Games, the studio behind this, they have like a very mixed track record for me, even though I really like a lot of the stuff they make. Like Akudama Drive was a cool anime they made, and then they also had like this baseball IP, which was kind of more mediocre. They had an Apple Arcade game, which started out pretty cool, but then ended like really weird. But I also kind of liked it, so I don't know how I feel about it. And then this looks like, and then Raincoat was like their most recent thing, and that was amazing. So I have a good amount of hopes for this, but at the same time, with the mixed track record, I don't know how this will turn out. But since it's like a Danganronpa strategy game with like visual novel elements, it's just like everything that I could possibly like in like one package. So yeah, definitely going to be picking this one up. And thankfully this time it's not like a Switch exclusive, so I don't got to wait like a whole year for it to come out on other platforms. Yeah, like I still have to pick up Raincoat.
Like, that's the weird thing with this company, right? And I I don't really follow a lot of their stuff, but I do have a massive amount of respect for the balls that are being displayed here and risking the whole company on one game. And it's really interesting when you have an executive that's willing to do that. But like, and especially in an era where we see like a lot of safe bets in the gaming industry, that's what really, garnered a lot more respect from me. Because they could have very easily played it safe and just made it like a really shitty short budget game to kind of pump more capital in, because people will buy it on the fact that it's by the Danganronpa team, because it is a phenomenon, right? Like, Danganronpa is one of the most popular IPs still to this day. You see Ibuki and fucking Nagito shit everywhere still, and it's really, and Junko is fucking like 9 million different statues. So it's a cultural phenomenon in that respect. But they don't have the license to Danganronpa, is why they're doing their own thing, right? So that's...
I mean, yeah, Spike Chunsoft has the rights, yeah. And I have no idea how or if they're going to make use of it, but yeah.
It's because they have the license to the anime, which was all-inclusive license, probably.
I mean, it's the gaming scene. The person who makes the game never owns the IP in most cases.
Unless it's self-published anymore.
Yeah, of course it's self-published.
But like, that is.
But to be fair, like, there's not like any bad blood or anything. Like,
No.
Spike Chunsoft is like more than willing to work with Kodaka. So frankly, they could just make another Danganronpa with him. And I'll be honest, like, if this doesn't turn out well, they might be like, "Hey, Spike, how about we make Danganronpa?" I need to save my.
Though? And like, with the ending, how though? Like,
here's the thing: I don't know, but they'll do it.
It was a pretty fucking definitive ending.
It really was. Like, it doesn't get more definitive than that.
The world's done.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Like, apocalypse happened, basically. But like, I find this one very funny yet vindictive, and the Lego Horizon being on literally every platform but Xbox.
Oh yeah, that was also funny to me. And because it was like Sony, like the devs, I guess, behind this were like, we can get this more if we get Nintendo on it. They'll more likely play like these Lego games. And I also think it's a good, like, important sign to keep in mind, because as we see Xbox putting more of their IP on Sony's platform and doing well, we're now seeing Sony also do that. Like with MLB, like that wasn't really their choice. Like that was kind of forced upon them by the people who have like more say in the MLB games. But with this game specifically, it's their IP, so they did have a choice, and they said, "Yeah, let's put it on Nintendo systems." And if it does well, and I hope it does, because it looks fun enough, and I do still like the Horizon IP, despite the fact that it's probably still a plant.
Literally.
Industry plant, but it's still, I think, a good like premise and like world, but whatever. That's a whole thing, other thing. I think that if this game does well, Sony might be more willing to not just put stuff on PC, but on Nintendo's console, and maybe once they get over themselves, on Xbox consoles.
See,
because like it's just getting more expensive to make games, and we talked last time when I was with you in Ann Arbor about how much money like Spider-Man had to make in order to recover its budget from those Insomniac leaks. And so it's only going to get more pricey. It's only going to take more time. And so why limit your platform? Because there are so many people with Nintendo systems and PCs and also Xboxes. Just put it on other platforms. And eventually it'll go on phones once our phones get better.
See, I genuinely don't know a single human being that owns an Xbox Series system.
Same.
Oh, yeah,
same.
me neither.
I mean, Microsoft itself said it was a flop.
Like, and that's the funny thing, right? Because like, I usually buy every system. Like, deadass, I have a wall of consoles here. I have an Ouya. I have an OnLive. I buy defunct consoles, right? I use the Ouya as like a glorified smart home device, because I just modded the shit out of it. But that's beside the point. I, as a console collector, do not own this, and that is shocking to say. because I have bought an Xbox day one every year or every generation. Like that is something I've always done. Except for the one, because I didn't want online only or like being forced into the Kinect platform, right? So I waited till they removed that. Then I bought it. I bought a Series S. Because I'm just like, fuck it. This is $200. I'll buy it, you know? But like not having, or I bought an Xbox One S. Like, see, the fucking naming conventions of these platforms is getting ridiculous. But like literally, I have no need to buy a new Xbox because everything goes to the PC. So when people were building gaming PCs during COVID and they saw this, they're like, why do I need an Xbox when I can just have Game Pass on my computer or on my old Xbox at this point, right? And that's the failure of the Microsoft market there. And I hate saying failure in that capacity because it is a definitive death to the market for consoles. But we really do, like, every console other than the Switch, because Nintendo does their own fucking thing, is a glorified PC at this point. There is no need for console exclusives when we have a platform that is literally, you know, sinking literal billions of dollars into game development. There's no need for this anymore, this tribalism that's in the industry. So I really do want to see more and more multi-platform games and, you know, this cross-platform capability, but I also very much want Horizon to fail. I very much want Horizon to fail because there is nothing more indicative of fucking industry plan than the fact that this franchise is less than 10 years old and it's getting its own goddamn TV show.
Yeah. That is very true. And that's what I found. When I found that out, even I had to be like, listen, even as a Horizon fan, I guess saying, we're going too far here, guys.
Yeah, like The Last of Us makes sense because it very much is like an interactive drama in its own right with how the story plays out.
Yeah, it's basically a TV show anyhow.
But like Horizon, like it doesn't need that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't even force myself to get through the
I like
game.
to think that the only reason it exists besides the industry plan theory is just that Sony is just trying to like make use of its IPs to expand its streaming services. Because recently they tried to buy Paramount.
Yep.
That didn't go through from what I remember. But, you know, the fact that they're trying means they're trying to get more IPs for their streaming platforms.
We're no longer an industry of innovation. We're an industry of IP. That's the sad reality of everything.
And that's something we talked about already in the last episode. And that only gets worse and worse.
Yeah. But like that, the last topic I have here that I was talking about while I was on my trip in Ann Arbor, and I had a good little back and forth on this, and I kind of want to expand on this. Is like I was wondering, like, where do we actually land in this, right? Because I was saying, like, is the lack of a licensed game, like, remember back in the day we used to have like tie-in games for movies and shit, right? Is that as like our AA titles specifically, like, okay, we can sink a little bit of money into it. Think like your Spider-Man 2 games for like the movies, for example, or the Shrek games that were really fun, but they were, you know, not relatively good, versus like, and the lack of new IP being created instead of that, or is the mass mergers in the industry doing more harm? Which do you think is doing the most damage to the gaming industry?
I think the mass. I think I've put on a bit. I still stand by the points I said. I just reiterate. My problem with the lack of licensed new IPs in general. The lack of licensed IP, easy to explain. Gaming in the past was an extremely niche branch. We are nowadays bigger than Hollywood itself. So now it's the complete opposite, as already you said with Horizon Zero Dawn. Now we get series and movies based on games, and not the other way around like we did in the past. But just because we grew bigger than everything else. The lack of new IPs is in general a huge problem. Every company wants, like, as Nintendo, as an example for Nintendo with Mario and Pokemon, every company wants a Mario and Pokemon. So they bring out they still try to like stay on their old IPs because making new IPs is worse than trying to hang on to to an old one, in their opinion. See Bandai Namco with how long they cling to Digimon.
That's fair.
I mean,
that's-
you say that, but we haven't had a Digimon game in so long.
It's
Digimon
still in
fans are
production.
starving. How
Yeah.
dare you lie like this?
It's still in production, supposedly, and mass mergers. I mean, most IPs are mass mergers are happening because smaller companies do not, or in general, companies do not want to give away their IPs anymore. Like, you can't just go to a company and say, "I want this IP, give me the IP." You can't do that. You need to buy all of those like companies nowadays for that.
Unless you're Embracer, and then you can just buy everything in the fucking industry and then crash in on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's lots of gaming articles.
But like, I feel like, from my take, right, like, we need to have that AA games to kind of keep the industry afloat, because we're seeing the bubble burst hard. It's like the fucking web bubble back in the day. So like, while we're having this massive crash and burn of like the COVID era of like buying up everything, because we had infinite money back then, essentially, in the industry, because everybody was sitting at home and doing nothing, unless you were an essential worker.
And money itself also was just way more worth it. I sent it in the podcast chat how much $40 were during the release of Pokemon Red, and how much it is now. And it is $80. So
yeah. Realistically, we haven't really raised the price of gaming.
Realistically, games became cheaper with $70.
Yeah, like, unless you're like a game where you have to have like a season pass and then a fucking game and then a like microtransaction added in, and then you're and that is also like 90% of the industry at this point too. But that's beside the point. But like, we need those AA titles, like your Hellblade 2s, your a licensed game, in the sense of like, we have a fucking new Marvel movie coming out. Why not make a Marvel game for that movie?
Well, they tried that.
Yeah, back in the PS3 era, we had like the Captain America game and the Thor game, and they were abysmal. And I think we had an Iron Man one too, and they were abysmal. But like, we need to do stuff like that again. We had a recently Ice Age game, and it was shitty, but it was fun.
If I could say something between, the problem with that is, what should the games be about? Should they be just the plot of the movies copied? Should it be the plot of the old games? But why should we play, because you already know everything what happens? Or should it be filler content? And
I mean, it could be the Avatar game where we just do Far Cry, but with Avatar.
Yeah.
That's true, and I did shit heavily on that.
That's why I'm using that example.
I'm just tired of the Ubisoft formula. Like,
you're totally real, because it's like, even outside of Ubisoft, like, sorry, I never didn't mean to talk over you. I was just going to say Horizon also kind of copies that same formula, and it's not even Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Every 2 out of 3 open world games are just the Ubisoft formula, completely agree, and it's fucking garbage, and that's where my hate for open world games comes from. But to go back what I wanted to say, if you want to make a like AA game with licensed IPs, you need a reason for people to get them. To have them a canon tie-in, because as soon as it's filler, nobody's going to fucking care. Nobody's going to buy it.
So like,
and that was a huge problem with everything.
That is fair.
And it's fair. So like, let me use a really shitty fucking example here, because it ended up not mattering at all in the grand scheme of things. But remember when they were trying to make Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. tie into the MCU?
Yes.
Do something like that if you want to make a Marvel game. Like, okay, this is like a side bit. Instead of like, say 87 fucking Disney Plus shows. Marvel tries to be multimedia. They have infinite money because they have Disney behind them now. They can make a game part of the canon of the MCU instead of like another stupid show, and then have it that way. But then I guess
you
also
remember when we as Kingdom Hearts fans complained about that to understand for law we need 10 different fucking consoles? No, you want to do that to the movie industry. Again, big problem. People will hate it. People will not jump over to it.
That is entirely fair. And I was also bringing up the fact that like they kind of try to do that with Defiance in a way, I don't know how many people watch that show, but like the actions you took in the game were supposed to, and this was a limitation of the hardware at the time, they were supposed to help interfere with the show, but there was a lot of meddling behind the scenes, and the game not working the way it was coded to, so you didn't have like the events play out the way they were supposed to fully, so they ended up ditching that idea like midway through. But they ended up bringing the game back to kind of use the scripts for the final season they were writing before it got canceled by Sci-Fi. Because like one episode of that show was like $200 million because of all this. The
I mean,
effects
that was
and
an
shit.
ambitious project, but it just did not go through at all, which sucks. But
like hardware-wise, and
but there is still a demand, I think, for that kind of thing, though. Even though Ann Arbor brought up a good point, because when Godzilla Kong came out, like the fan base were like, okay, it'd be cool if we had another Godzilla game to play alongside like all these like Godzilla movies that are coming out. And the most we get are like crossovers with like mobile titles and COD for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but
okay, but
that's kind of
hell.
the limits of the IP. It was extremely funny, especially because we got story details from these crossovers before the movie. We were able to put together so much of the story from that. But it also was like a good thing to do for that reason, because people got engaged with the content. So yeah, I agree that it's a good idea. But I also think that more than likely, though, we're still not done with like mergers, which is unfortunate because then it also means we're not done with like layoffs that we've been seeing in the industry.
I'm shocked that I didn't see any layoffs in the last couple weeks in this chat. I'm genuinely shocked.
Yep, but one thing in the chat I didn't post that I thought I did was what I just posted.
I saw like, that
IGN.
So IGN basically has a monopoly over the gaming news network at this point.
Literally, they literally bought out every competition.
Other than Gamers, which is the company that used to own Escapist before they were.
They also like cancelled their London event, the London convention. If you guys got heard about that.
Oh, didn't.
I did not.
6 days before the convention should have started, they cancelled it.
Did you guys see that they were having a party at IGN right around a batch of the fucking layoffs for
yes
during?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was at like a nightclub, I think. It was during Summer Game Fest when Jeff Keighley was.
That is bad.
They were having Jeff Keighley during the Summer Game Fest talking about the layoffs and everything, and they were like they had canned cheering like a goddamn sitcom, essentially, like cheer, like they had like people saying like cheer, and it was queued up during the fucking announcement about the layoffs. I'm like, if ever there was poor taste in your own goddamn industry, it would be then to be cheering for that.
Yeah, that is bad. Oh my god, that reminds me. To slightly go off topic, but it's very parallel to when one of the leaders of the government here celebrated taking away money from most vulnerable people.
Love that from the government.
I've heard a lot of that's been happening with the current administration.
Yeah, but like there is something to be said when like you have literal monopolies forming and there's no intervention. Like the fact that the government intervened with the Paramount merger at one point because we're like, you own too much, was shocking to me. I think it was Sony that they stepped in there for because they were trying to buy it.
Our government is getting like more aggressive with like mergers happening, and maybe it's just a sign of like the times we live in that they kind of have to be. Yeah. Which I mean,
there are 8 companies in a trench coat at this point. It's ridiculous.
I mean, that's the law to stop monopolies in most countries, like Germany or Britain, for example. But it's illegal to create a monopoly. Go on.
But like it's so shocking to me that IGN basically controls 99% of the entertainment news at this point.
Yeah, they just like got away with it on the down low because who's going to report on it? The gaming media, they control it.
Exactly. But like when you think about it, like nobody really cares about companies like IGN at this point because most of the gaming news is centered around YouTube at this point.
It's true. And I think that's the thing. Like, this move to me, I feel like kills off any legitimacy that gaming journalism really has had, at least in print form. Because like these dedicated sources are all owned by one company now. So it's like, well, okay, I already didn't trust most of your takes because I don't know if the people writing these articles play games to begin with or have any idea what they're talking about if they do.
I mean,
But now it's like, well,
I got in a
it goes.
giant argument with one of their fucking editors, like 2 years ago, when they were defending the take for and they said in the review that they only played 10 hours of the campaign, for the fucking Final Fantasy remake. I'm like, how can you judge an entire 80-hour game based on the first 10 hours of something? Right. And that is not an honest review for the content of the product you're trying to review. And they're like, 10 hours is more than enough time to sink into this product when I'm not enjoying it. I'm like, you are not enjoying it. That is your opinion. That is not the fact of the type of content that you are reporting on. If you're not enjoying reviewing this, pass it to somebody else who actually wants to play an RPG. If you don't like RPGs, because this dude had only ever reviewed, because I used to stay kind of in tune with that industry for a while. He had only ever reviewed shit like Call of Duty and Rainbow Six Siege and stuff like that. I'm like, how can you objectively review a type of game that you do not enjoy? Like,
Yeah.
and like that is how that industry works. It's like the 7 out of 10 water is wet kind of bullshit, right? And I'm like, how can you trust any media in general when it's very much, subjective to whoever's reviewing that? And I understand, like, not every genre is for everybody. I'm not the biggest strategy game player, but I still will sit down and play something like Marvel Midnight Suns because I love XCOM, and that is one of the few, strategy games that I do enjoy. I loved Civilization when I was a kid. I did play a lot of Command and Conquer, but that's about as far as my sphere in, like, strategy games go and tactical games go in that capacity. Whereas I fucking live in RPGs, so that would have been a review that I would have sank the time in to see if it actually is a good RPG or if it's a shitty, cobbled together RPG. And I think Ann Arbor and I can agree to some capacity that some of the plot points in the Final Fantasy VII Remake don't make any sense, even in the grander scheme of the Nomura canon.
First of all, I would not call it, I like how we call it Nomura canon. Nomura wanted to make an authentic remake. It was the OG Final Fantasy VII writer who made most of his changes in part 1.
I'm using it more as like the fact that we threw in 3 spin-offs and a movie too into that canon.
And it's fucking garbage. Like half of the stuff in part 2 didn't make any sense.
I don't agree fully on part 2 not making a lot of sense, but I do agree that it is cobbled together. I'm waiting to let him cook for part 3 and then I'll fucking judge fully as a product because it's insane what's happening, but I wouldn't say it's bad if it actually pays off. I'm coping. Can you tell I'm coping?
Can you tell that I already stopped coping? I just enjoy my gameplay and skip the story at this point.
I refuse to skip the story in any story game. I'm sorry. Unless I played it before. I'll skip the fucking cutscenes in Kingdom Hearts at this point. I don't care. But I've also played Kingdom Hearts like 9 billion fucking times. But like, it's funny to me, like, and our own like regular media here in America is this way, and I think it's the same way in the UK because fucking Sky News is fucking, or BBC in general is editing like 90% of the fucking shit over there.
Yeah, I saw what you tagged me in on.
It's fucking
Twitter
Transformers. It's fucking Transformers. Why are you editing out a word? You're editing out a singular word because you want to be transphobic.
And the only response, like, I was just like thinking, like, how can I respond to something like this? And the only way I could do it was get the first non-binary character I could think of to
Francois. Yeah.
to put in a GIF.
But like, it's something that really boggles my mind with the BBC and Sky News and all that over there, because I was subjected to it at the fucking hotel I was at, because I was not paying for like additional licenses, and I did not really have access to any of the shit that I stream, because we done this lovely thing where like you have to be in the country or near the location that your device was last used for shit like Netflix and all of that. So that's really fucking fun.
I think because I think you could still do that, like get away where you can just say like, hey, because you can do that for like phones over here where it's like, hey, I'm out of the country, can I have access to what
I ended up like doing like a 30-day password thing or location thing for Netflix.
Yeah,
I got tired of fucking BBC. I can only watch Doctor Who so many times. I'm sorry.
Really, the only thing I really watch that we really use our TV for is for streaming and or watching game shows.
Yeah, like it was the first time I really experienced it, because normally I'm in and out of a different country within like a day or 2 days max when I'm doing anything tour related. But like it was interesting. But what I did do while I was over there is I went on like a record haul and I bought a bunch of records.
I saw that, and I'm like, if you wanna check out record collections, you really need to come to my house, because my parents still have like the Beatles records and the Michael Jackson Thriller record where he's like holding the tiger.
Oh Jesus, that's a deep cut. But like it was interesting being over there, because I also did see a different side of the gaming industry too. Because over there you have a couple of the studios in the UK. I couldn't go into them. But there it's depressing now when you think about it, but the old Ubisoft UK building was like a couple blocks from the hotel I was at. And I'm like, fuck. That's right, they closed. So it's just an abandoned fucking building.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is fucking crazy. Because they've actually got relocated when they combined a couple of the UK studios. So I think it's in France now. All of the EU building went to the Ubisoft France.
Understandable. Like, it's smarter for a company to be outside of Britain nowadays.
But like but it was just like kind of surreal to me. Like I'm over here, and then like a few blocks from where I was at when I was over in Bristol was the fucking one of the Arcane buildings, and I'm like, that's gone.
But that's kind of the thing with VFX. They'll abandon the buildings for literally years until somebody's like,
same here in America.
Yeah, it's like the old cinema theater thing that's near my grandmother's house. That's been abandoned for decades now, and it's still there. And people are trying to figure out what to do with it, because they don't want to tear the building down, but they want to revamp it.
So, Party James, you're from the Midwest. Do you remember? Yes, you remember Jack White, right? From the White Stripes.
I don't think I know.
Okay, so he's a Michigan-based artist. Who the Seven Nation Army, which was in like 500,000 fucking trailers, back in the 2000s. He owns a record label. When I was in Detroit last, they moved the location for that old building. I don't know when they moved it, or if it's just because Detroit is such a fucking hellscape, usually. that building...
I've lived there for a little while, so yeah, I know.
That building
I also think it might just be because the city has been like somewhat renovating over the last couple of years, I want to say.
So how many people have seen the old Exorcist?
I did.
I've seen some of it.
I have.
Fun fact.
I've seen clips of it, yeah.
The old Exorcist, the girl that was based on it lived in Klingenberg, a town in Germany I was raised in. I
Damn.
literally lived 5 minutes apart from the house where the girl lived and died.
So the old building that his record factory or studio, it looks like the house from The Exorcist now. It's that fucking derelict.
So it looked like my old neighbor. Good to know.
Yeah, it literally, you could probably assume that it got shelled in a war, and that's how a lot of the slums area of Detroit still looks, unfortunately. So like, it wasn't really shocking to me to see that kind of abandonment in general, but to somebody from like a different country, it might have been. But like, I just was really interested in like seeing the architecture and shit for like some of these corporate buildings and I'm like, I would hate to work in the game industry because it looks like how we've turned all of our stores over here to like a very, very nude gray or mute gray kind of thing. And I'm like, this is depressing. Like, I understand why more people wanted to work from home near the end of this building being here. That's kind of why I put in the chat, like, why is everything just one shade of gray? But I do see you put one other article in here, Party Jams, and I'm very curious the details of it because I don't want to click on another link because I have like 8,000 tabs open right now.
The Variety one from like
The buff one.
yes, 2 days ago.
Yeah,
The SAG-AFTRA thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so I think someone else posted it in our like gaming channel, and I just wanted to put it up here because I thought this was kind of interesting because, like, with SAG-AFTRA, which was like a big thing and caused a lot of like delays in projects in order to get people rights, they're thinking of expanding it more to cover indie projects as well. And I thought, okay, that's pretty good. But I also thought to myself, it's like, wait a minute, I think I remember after the end of the original like protest, like there were a lot of video game voice actors that were on social media saying it's like they didn't really get as much protections as they wanted from this. So I thought it's like, okay, if they go back for another round, so to speak, to get more for like indie developers, I really hope that they additionally get more protections for those voice actors because that's like a whole other segment of like the industry that does deserve like protections.
yeah, it's
Especially with all the AI stuff we talked about earlier in
So,
the
like,
discussions.
there's one other aspect of this that really got me thinking here too, and it's very much AI related. So I don't know how many people paid attention, but Scarlett Johansson was their voice was used to train one of the like AIs against her will, and there's been
Ouch.
that was already I think 2 months old, isn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a couple
remember
months
seeing
ago, but I feel like that's a very good point to bring up here because like if we're going to continue to have against the wishes of actors in general, their likeness and their like voice being used, and then you're seeing a lot of like SAG actors being kind of screwed over even in their contract by allowing or the union reps meeting with fucking AI companies like OpenAI and shit and saying like, hey, we'll do this, this, and this under the table kind of thing. Because I saw a couple articles about that around the same time that news broke about Scarlett Johansson's voice. I feel like we need to push our union to be better in that capacity, and this is a good first step, especially for smaller studios. Like Team Cherry, for example, that does Hollow Knight, right? Obviously, there's no voice acting in that game, but like studios of that size, we consider indie studios and shit.
Yeah, especially as they are going to be handling most of the creative stuff as the big studios are out making the same games over and over again.
Yeah, and then Ann Arbor, you just linked a Twitter.
Yeah,
link.
about will AI take your voice acting job?
From a voice actor, I'm a huge fan of.
Oh, okay.
Like someone who is in that industry, I just wanted to like for later on that you can read through.
Let me pull it up on my phone real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll say
I did put it up on my my desktop actually.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, I'll say my last thing that I wanted to bring up was because I haven't had a chance to. I don't think I've had a chance to bring it up yet in like a podcast, but I'll bring it up now. What my initial thoughts on like the announcement for Guild Wars 3, considering like Guild Wars 2 is one of my favorite MMOs. And I'm like, yeah, it was bound to happen at some point, but considering it's only recently been announced and the fact that they're still bringing out expansions for Guild Wars 2, and I said this with my brothers as well, we don't believe it is not going to come out until probably even a trailer probably won't see the light of day for like another 12 years at this point.
That's insane to think about because fucking Guild Wars 2 came out when I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah, and it's still incredibly popular. Like people still buy the expansions. People are still playing it. Like the other day I had like a PvP map, and there was like about 300 max players on that one singular map in just one session.
Or at least
So the fact
like,
that
yeah, it was sometime in high school. Like I had exited like fucking Lich King and went into that for a little bit, but I just can't fucking do MMOs anymore.
And that's fine. I'm just bringing it up because I just wanted to get my thoughts out. But yeah, at the very earliest, maybe 2035, we might start seeing like.
I doubt it will be that long realistically, but it's entirely possible with a scale of a game like that.
Yeah, because it's like people have been expecting it for years. I'm just basing it on the fact that they're still bringing content out now for Guild Wars 2, and they've said that they're not going to stop bringing out content for Guild Wars 2. That's why I'm.
They might just not do a Guild Wars 3 then. Like, it's entirely possible that they just keep that there. And just rebrand it, like you know how they rebranded like Hitman 3 to just World of Assassination. I just saw one of my friends pop up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because they put all 3 games into one.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I don't. Even though it's been technically announced as it's in development, I think it's gonna take like at the very earliest maybe about 6 years minimum development.
So we'll watch we get that shit before we get Elder Scrolls 6.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna make the meme joke. Watch us get that before Hard-Life 3.
Yeah, fucking. If we don't get Half-Life 3 before Gavin dies, I'm going to haunt him when I die. I'm going to haunt a ghost.
We will never get Half-Life 3. Get over it finally.
Never.
Hey! Remember when we were saying a lot of the times that Ruri Dragon wasn't going to come back, and it came back?
I always said it'd come back. I always said that.
But like,
I was always believing.
But the funny thing is, like, with all of the stuff that we have just stashed in like non-existence in the gaming industry, it is insane to think about how much IP the people have been clamoring for. Like, we just got a port of Sly Cooper to the PS5. Like, the original Sly Cooper through, like, the PlayStation Ultimate bullshit, right? And that made the conversation come back, when are we getting another fucking Sly Cooper? We've had people clamoring for a new fucking Infamous for years. Like, I would love to have a new Infamous. And that type of game would cost, well, at this point, who fucking knows how much it would cost, honestly. Because it's the same studio that makes fucking Spider-Man. So watch that take $1 billion fucking dollars to make. But like, it's shocking to me. But we also are finally getting Metroid back. We got Dread. We're getting Prime 4, and that sat on the shelf for fucking half a fucking decade. We've been rumored to be getting a new Star Fox on the Switch 2. But we can't get a new Jak and Daxter out of Naughty Dog. They are specifically going to be the fucking Last of Us studio, it seems like. We're not getting anything realistically out of Guerrilla that isn't Horizon, right? But they own the rights to Killzone. And everybody wants a COD killer. X-Defiant flopped. Well, I wouldn't say flop, but it just died off, and everybody that streamed it went back to Warzone. So, like, we could get a new kill zone, and that could do a little bit of damage to it. It won't kill it. I don't think anything will ever fully kill COD. That's a pipe dream, you know. But it's just shocking to me. Like, we have so many dormant IPs. I think Thurman and I did a video years ago on like all the dormant PlayStation IP. If I can find it, I'll try and link it in the description of this video. But YouTube doesn't like links anymore. But it was like a list that was 3 pages long on Wikipedia, just shit that's never been touched since like the 2000s. It was depressing to look at. You know, and Nintendo's just as bad. Earthbound will never get Mother 3 over here, but we'll get it on the Switch Japan version. I still say Reggie's behind that. What do you guys think?
I just want another Kid Icarus.
Kid Icarus.
Yeah,
Like,
why
the fact that it didn't come on the Switch is just so weird, so that they have to put something on the Switch too with that IP.
Like, even just a port of Uprising.
I liked Uprising so much, they really just said, fuck all
They
seriousness.
could charge $60 and we will pay
Wait a
for it.
second.
And by we, I mean Nintendo fans will pay for it.
I will gladly. Yep.
Say something on the topic of
Yep.
a new Kid Icarus.
He did Uprising. I know that. I don't know if he's going to do another one. But also, like, I know we just got a Kirby not too long ago, but I want an old school Kirby. I don't want fucking yarn. I want an old school Kirby. I don't want clay. I want a side scrolling.
I don't want the car.
Okay, wait. Like, didn't we have like Star Allies or something?
Did we? I might have missed one. I don't remember that title.
Yeah, we had Kirby Star Allies. We also got Forgotten Land 2 years ago, which that was
Right, but that was like a 3D, so I figured that wouldn't count towards Vex's like old school Kirby, because like Forgotten Land is like the Odyssey, I guess.
I
Kirby.
love
But
Forgotten
yes,
Land.
Kirby Star Allies 2018. I think that's close to what you're saying. Maybe, I don't know.
I'll look it up. I'll look it
Star
up.
Allies was 2019.
But I had fun with the
I
3D.
just googled this.
I had fun with the 3D one, but it was just like I just yearn for that 2D Kirby again.
I mean,
probably
yeah, I
most
guess
of the
try
time.
out Star Allies. I heard a lot of people didn't really like it, but you might. I don't know if that's really what you want.
I mean, it's probably not that expensive. No, it's a Nintendo game. What the fuck am I saying? It's probably still a $60 game. What is a sale, Nintendo? Do you know that? Do you know what that word means?
No, they
I can
don't.
confirm it is
They
$60 because I see that right here.
I was hoping
Nintendo putting their games on sale. Are you crazy?
you might get a $10 discount around Black Friday.
Maybe if you're lucky.
But like that's insane to think about. I do wonder what the next resurrected IP will be to end this off on. Like, do you think that we'll get Scalebound back at any point?
Never.
Man, I mean, I would love for it to happen, but that is just like tied up in so much like bullshit
tape,
that it's
yeah.
kind of hard to imagine it. Because it's like the only way I can see it is if Xbox owns like a bunch of studios now, and if they still have the rights, is like give Scalebound to like one of their other studios, maybe. Like that's the best way I can see it. The only other way is like if Platinum is like, you know what? What if Microsoft buys us and then we'll make Skip?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to happen just because Japanese law and stuff, but whatever.
But like it's funny to think about. Like there's about a half dozen things that we could bring back, right? And I genuinely am curious where we'll go, because I think that out of all of the major players right now, we could see something come from Sony before we see it come from Microsoft or from Nintendo at this point, because Sony seems to be playing a lot more fast and loose with their stuff than anything.
I'm not sure if I agree with that, just because like with Sony, like the big reason I could see Sony doing it as a point to you is that we have a new CEO. Like,
Right.
let's face it, one of the big reasons that we didn't have is we were held back for that reason. But,
Exactly. But like with Phil Spencer, I know he seems to be like for the players and all that, but I don't think after all of the controversy, that he's in the biggest favor with anybody. So I could see maybe him taking the risk of bringing something back that was a fan favorite just to try and pull that favor back. But I also genuinely think that with a new CEO and a safer, a more fan interactive approach seemingly coming from Sony, because we have the split CEO. There's not one person, overseeing both divisions.
Yeah.
We have one that seems to be more gamer focused in charge of the PlayStation division, and then we seem to have one that's more like consumer goods focused in the television, phone, whatever the fuck else Sony does at this point. Who even knows what Sony does outside of PlayStation, right? I know
they're not making money. I'll tell you that.
No, they're really not.
Their movie division is like desperately trying to get some IPs, like I was saying before.
Yeah.
And their electronics division, I don't even know if they're leading in anything anymore.
Memory capacity, because they do
maybe that.
They do own the highest capacity optical disc, but even then they're phasing that out. So what does that even matter?
Good point. But what my other point against those Sony like being like the big, people to like get some new things out is that this year, I mean, like before when the fiscal year started, that's the word. They said it's like, no new first party IP coming out. And that's been true other than like Astro, I guess, if you want to count that. So it's hard for me to imagine that they have like a lot line, unless they're keeping like everything like a secret until it's like very close to being ready, which is just going to take a while in general. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to imagine they have anything else because like the last state of play was like very bare bones in terms of like first party Sony content or any indications that they have interest. While with Microsoft, like while they didn't have firm release dates on a lot of stuff, which is like probably my biggest criticism for that presentation, they did at least show a lot of the IP that they're working on. So they're at least actively using a good amount of their IP. So I still say it's like a more likely on their end, but that's just my take.
Yeah, what rubbed me the wrong way with Xbox outside of that is like Phil's line of hey, we wanted to have more, risks taken in this from smaller studios when they just shuttered Tango Gameworks, right? Who they threw their whole favor behind Hi-Fi Rush, and it seemed to be like their big, hit darling, and then they shuttered it. The exact type of product that they were talking about wanting more of, the studio behind that, they shuttered it right as they were at the height of their popularity, right? And that was one that rubbed me the wrong way. And that's why I don't feel like Xbox wants to do anything with like existing stuff other than like big IP. Like they're throwing Black Ops 6 on fucking Game Pass, for example, which actually shocked me because I did not think Activision would be like, hey, just because we're under, Microsoft now, doesn't mean we're putting our biggest game under the Game Pass banner. They still charge a membership for fucking World of Warcraft at fucking like 15, 20 years into that. They still lock a lot of their stuff other than Diablo, like all of their, the Blizzard side of things, like all of that is still locked behind closed doors, like a walled garden. So I was blown away when they said Black Ops 6 was going to be, on Game Pass day one. I figured at the very least, if they were going to put it on there, it would be a few months after launch, after everybody had already bought it. Everybody that was a diehard.
Not to be,
go ahead.
Not to be mean to Activision, but because they've been through it, frankly. But the fact that COD was like the big thing that like everyone was working on, whether they wanted to or not, kind of made me think that like when it comes to their decisions, they will just do whatever the top says. If they say put this stuff on Game Pass, they'll probably do it. Because otherwise, I feel like there would be more like resistance to like the creativity that Activision has not been able to do, and like also why I think Toys for Bob, of course, bought themselves out.
Yeah, I mean they were successful enough to do that, and I'm very happy that they escaped Activision and COD jail. I wish Raven would do the same. Like honestly, I loved Raven as a publisher. I wish they would or as a studio in general. I loved them. I wish they would buy themselves the fuck out of that, but they can't
Well,
really.
I still don't actually know how like Toys for Bob did it, but so I'm not sure if Raven can.
I would assume the CEO had the other shit behind them, other than the fact that they were successful with Crash and Spyro, but I do find it cool that Microsoft is helping them publish their first new game too, but I also like the fact that they escaped means that they're independent, so they can't really just be shuttered if they don't succeed, which seems to be the fate of a lot of these studios. Like look to I guess there was technically one layoff, but I think we mentioned it during the last podcast, and it was the Alone in the Dark team. Like their whole studio is basically gone at this point. And it's very indicative of the nature of like if you don't do millions of sales in the first couple weeks now in this industry, you're done. Your studio's gone, and that's not how this industry should work. And that game was insanely fun as a survival horror fan. I wouldn't say it was a perfect game. It was a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10. But you can't not have a 10 out of 10 and without some ramifications anymore. And that's not how any art should be. Like you should be allowed to make mid. You should be allowed to have a flop before you are able to find your footing. Look to Bloober Team of all things, right? And how many shitty, broken games they launched in the survival horror genre and how far they've gone. Now they're leading up the Silent Hill 2 remake. I wouldn't say they're the right pick for that, but I'll see how it is when it launches because I love Silent Hill. I love survival horror, but I feel like out of all of them, like Microsoft probably won't do that unless it's to garner the favor. I would also say Nintendo definitely isn't going to revive anything like early on in the lifespan of the Switch 2, and that's where we're at now. That's why I figured they were off the market for that, unless they were to put like a Kid Icarus on there.
I think they have like the big IPs, like the next big Mario game, because we haven't had anything since Odyssey. Well, like 3D Mario, I should say. And then like the next probably Zelda game is likely also in the early years. Not counting like 3D Zelda again. I really shouldn't have to qualify all of it.
Yeah, no, like,
and maybe if they do more Smash Bros, that's gonna be like up there as an early title. So I agree. There's not gonna be any of like the niche stuff for a good while. If the niche stuff is like anything that's just gonna come out on the Switch is like dying breaths at best.
Yeah, like we're not going to get a new Star Fox right now. We're not going to get a new mainline F-Zero. I shouldn't have to qualify that, but I don't count F-Zero 99 as a goddamn F-Zero game. Like an actual functional F-Zero game, with actual plot and story and, whatever. It's just a battle royale with really fast racers. We're not going to get a Kid Icarus. We're not going to probably get a new Donkey Kong. Out of all of them, that would be the safest bet because we're having a new remake Donkey Kong done.
And the movies that are supposedly coming out with Donkey Kong. I feel like that would have been more likely if we weren't getting like Donkey Kong Country, because that makes me think that. Well, I guess someone at different teams handling it though.
I feel like that's.
I guess it's not impossible, but yeah.
I feel like that might be a test for interest in the franchise still. Kind of how we did with like the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, because that was already rumored to be in the works for a while, and then we did Dread to see if because it was a lower budget 2D Metroid, and then we got Metroid Prime Remake to see if the Prime will still sell. I would still love to see a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remake come out for the Switch before 4, but I doubt we'll get that. Because those games are still insanely expensive on the GameCube or Wii. But we'll see if we get those. But I feel like out of all of them, it will probably be Sony. And I would say at this point, they were using Sly Cooper as the same kind of like to garner interest thing as they were for Donkey Kong on the Switch, possibly. And, with the amount of the publicity, because like Sly Cooper was trending on Twitter for a while, I feel like that would be the safest bet. And since Sucker Punch is already knee deep into like Ghost of Tsushima 2, I figure a smaller studio, maybe like a Studio Bend would do it. Since they seem to be in charge of like the resurrections or remakes in general on that. Although I would love for Sucker Punch to have like a small studio working on, or a small team working on that. Like they kind of had like a skeleton team working on near the end of Cyberpunk's lifespan with CD Projekt Red. They had a small team working on the DLC, with the big team working on like Witcher, the new Witcher project kind of thing. I'd love to see that, like, because we don't know how deep into production Ghost 2 is, so that would be kind of cool. But anyway, that was just like a kind of brainstorming topic to wrap this up and kind of get it almost over the 3-hour mark. So any final thoughts on this?
3 hours.
Gaming is doomed.
I don't disagree with you.
Gaming
let's go.
needs
I'm
a
not
revamp.
finished. So let's go back to the good old days. Guys, remember the times where we had WoW and the first horse on sale? Those were great times.
Oh yeah, well, Steam Summer Sale's here too. So I mean, go buy
yeah.
Kingdom Hearts.
In the background of our discussion, I've just been buying that stuff.
Let me load my
It's been
Steam so
good.
I can see what's on sale. Other than like,
Everybody else can go save their wrap up.
other than that, oh shit! Look at that. Speaking of Xbox games, you can buy Sea of Thieves for $20.
Yeah,
You can
sounds
also
about
play
right.
Armored Core if you want to play a good game.
I would rather slip my dick off.
Wow.
Then go and do that.
I played Armor Core on the PS5, and that was the most frustrating game I have ever played.
I have not bought it.
I didn't buy it. I borrowed it from a friend. The Steam Deck is also on sale. So buy a Steam Deck. Buy a Steam
So
Deck.
if you guys want to play games that are not laggy, buy a Steam Deck. Those games are optimized for it. Unlike your PC.
And Tunic is on sale. Speaking of games that we talked about in this podcast, Tunic is on sale for $15.
Celeste is on sale for $195.
Real?
Ooh.
That's
Yes.
yeah, $199 here in America. That's not bad. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, if I didn't already own it, I would have bought it with $2 easily.
Monster Rise $9.99.
Persona 3 Reloaded and Persona 5 Royale on sale. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is not on sale, but it is a very good game. I will say that.
Why am I looking through these things? I don't have money. I can't buy anything.
Xenoblade Chronicles.
Anyways, thanks you guys for watching. Nobody else wants to do a wrap up, so I will do it. This was the gaming podcast for this quarter of a year.
Yeah.
See you guys in the next one.
Yeah. Bye bye.